Hey, and I'm live. So, hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another stream, another episode of me making my desktop environment in the browser, my OS in the browser using React and Next.js and styled components and that kind of thing. My name is Dustin Brett. I'm a software developer from Vancouver, Canada. And today I'm powered by Red Bull Diet Red Bull. It's what developers drink, apparently. Occasionally. Not always, but I think I need it today. I think it was the same as last week where I said I'm kind of tired and I didn't completely perfectly plan this out again. So for those of you that are new to the stream, I'm building the entire thing in streams as far as my coding, not slipping in any commits or doing anything in the background. Everything, every line of code, every character, I'm live streaming here. So you guys are following along with me as I do a rebuild of my original project, and that's usually the point where I show my original project, which I'll show you guys right now. This is the repository for it, GitHub repo. It's still at 1.3 thousand stars. If I click here, we're just at exactly 1,300 finally. Nice. It's been 1,200 for a while, like 1,286 or something last time I checked. So we've hit exactly 1,300. Now this number is legit 1.3. Before, it's been rounding up for a while, so I don't know if it started at 1250 or 1251 or who knows, but maybe we'll see. If we get 1301 and then it says 1.4, that would be cool. Then people will think I have 1.4. So, but then again, I also don't care about that kind of thing. It's not a numbers game. Anyways, this is the project. This is the original code. It's pretty hefty, the original code. It's based on similar stuff, Next.js, but there's a lot of things I wanted to improve. So that's kind of a big part of what this redo is about. The only thing I commit to this main repo now is just updates about the streams so that people know about them. But if you switch over to the redo branch here, this is the code we have, and got 104 commits now, which is a reasonable amount. It's a lot better than my other previous commits, which are always like tweaks, something, blah, blah, blah. I never put anything descriptive because I didn't care as much, but now I'm making sure to properly do all these commits so you guys know what each change is connected to, and we'll have a great Git history. And in future episodes, when we're trying to track down some bug that I've created, we can see exactly why I screwed up and what day it happened. So it'll be cool. Thanks, by the way, for the viewers that are here live and checking it out. Feel free to message anything in the chat if you want. I'm keeping an eye on it, and this is interactive. If you guys have any ideas or anything, feel free to throw some messages in there. Also, if you like the videos that I've been doing, you like this video, throw me a like in the video. Put some comments in the video if you want to talk about anything, or if you have any ideas for how we should take the project and what I should do next. And subscribe, please. If you subscribe, then you're gonna know about these sooner. You're gonna know about other videos I did. I just did a video recently, a couple days ago, about the PC build for the new computer that all of this stream is running on, and it was a pretty cool video, and it's been a good computer. So I'm gonna do another video soon. I got the new S21 recently. So I'm going to do a video about that. It's a great phone, so it'll be a cool review as well. But yeah, let's get back to the task at hand here, and let's go into these commits and see what we did last episode. This is the episode 7 recap. So we're on episode 8 now, so this is what happened on episode 7. And let's check it out. So let's just go to the bottom here where it started. I actually did a ton of stuff. I'm going to kind of gloss over a little bit of the details of these, but many refactors and reorganizing, like moving stuff around, different just mild tweaks, a lot of tweaks. That's why last episode, if you look at the notes under like maintenance, housekeeping, and refactoring section, it was just a massive list. Whereas this time, I don't know if we'll fill the 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours. I'm not sure how long it'll take, so we'll see. I've got some interesting ideas. I'd like to get into the file system stuff today, but we'll see, because I actually don't have that completely fleshed out. I have like the basic hook fleshed out that I want, but we'll see how far we take it. I might even just commit some stuff. It's not like everything has to be complete. I mean, as you'll see in the code, nothing's too complete right now. So, but this episode, we're actually going to clean up the taskbar, I think, quite a bit, and make it start to look a little closer to how my other one looked, at least on first impressions. We don't have a desktop icons yet, but that's where the file system's going to come in, because those desktop icons were associated with the real file system. So yeah, what did we do last episode? Like I say, Tons of refactoring. We won't get into those, but one thing was fixing the test. That's a tradition that I've had with my episodes, is fixing the broken test that I created the episode prior. This time I actually don't have a broken test, so we don't have to worry about that this time. I haven't broke anything yet. Maybe by the end of the episode I will. And there, at one point, one of the changes I do will break the tests. Well, actually, there's a few things that are going to cause errors, and we're going to have to work around them, and we'll discuss those as they happen. But yeah, the test was broken because the wallpaper, the animated wallpaper, uses WebGL, but the test itself, running in Jest in like a fake environment, essentially, does not have WebGL. So I just added a test to check for WebGL, basically. And if it's not there, it essentially doesn't render anything, but it doesn't break anything either. So the test is still allowed to continue. So yeah, the refactoring, and then the only other thing of relevance is kind of just the top here. A couple of these adjusting of sizes and stuff. That's when I went into a virtual machine, which we're not going to work with this episode, but I have a Windows 10 virtual machine where I was able to kind of show you guys picking apart some of the taskbar accessibility stuff using an accessibility inspect tool that allows you to kind of look at the rectangle bounds of all the elements on the screen and get kind of better measurements for them rather than just kind of taking a screenshot and measuring it. But to be honest, that actually works pretty much just as good, just print screen on Windows and then open up MS Paint, paste that in there, zoom in a bunch, and then just measure that. I've done that for like 20 years. I've been doing that with MS Paint, basically, that kind of measuring of pixels. So it's always kind of worked out for me, to be honest. It's probably not the most efficient way, but it's worked. So yeah, that's the recap. I mean, really, there's not a huge... I was looking at these notes today, and it's like, I guess I just did a ton of refactoring and stuff, and then just cleaned a bunch of stuff up. So we're going to do a bit more of that this episode, but like I say, we're also going to try to make things look a little more like how the other one looks. So let's just get into the code right here, and I'll show you guys. So you can see here above me, that's how the app is looking at the moment. And we got the animated wallpaper, which is kind of cool. That's similar to what I have in my other one, except I have a color shift on my other one, which we'll do at a later date. But the taskbar, as you see, I mean, the structure of it's decent in that looks about right. That process is fake, the pink process. There shouldn't be essentially any processes right now. Although in a way there is. There's the taskbar, which I've made a process. The wallpaper is not a process. I don't know if that makes sense to make it one. That's something to think about another day. But the only real process running right now is the taskbar. But I don't know if we'll get to doing the taskbar entries like dealing with process today. It's up here, this pink thing. But when we do, we're going to have to filter out things like the taskbar. Like that's not something that should show up in the taskbar. That's like a system component, but we don't really have that designation at this point for our fake processes. So what else? Yeah, so the colors are all wrong on the taskbar. So I want to change a bunch of it. Today some of the things I want to do after we do some of the refactoring and stuff is, like, you see how there's an X, the red X there for the start button. I'm going to make that a better button. I'm actually going to have a Windows logo. And it's from the Font Awesome library, a free library. They have a thing called brands, and they have an icon called Windows icon, which I'll show you guys later in a link. So for that reason, I feel like it's kind of okay to take. Because I'm trying to work with all the licensing stuff here. That's another thing that I'll discuss and we'll do is the font. And in my last one, I'd found a font that really matched pretty well. But this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to leverage the fact that you can say, like, use the system font. So people that have Windows that have the font, like especially people using Windows 10, are going to see it exactly like a Windows 10 because it's going to use the exact same font. Now for people that aren't in that exact scenario, I think in a later episode we'll think about that more and figure out some licensing. Like Microsoft has an open source version of the font that we essentially want to use. Segoi UI, I think it's called. I don't know how you pronounce the first word, but it's like SEGOE UI. That's like the main Windows font for a lot of the elements on the like the clock and the taskbar and that kind of thing. So that's the one we're going to use. But yeah, like I said, we're not actually supplying a font file, like a WOFF file right now, but it's something to consider because people on like Mac, it's going to look a bit different, and we'll test that at a later date. But for now, let's not worry about that because that just gets into the licensing stuff and I don't want to think about it right now. But like I said, we'll discuss it more as we get into it. But that's something to look forward to for this episode, is we're going to clean up that taskbar, and it's going to feel more legit. And another cool thing, and this is something I'm excited about, is discussing the clock and the way I did the clock. I assume it's not super clever the way I did it, but I do find that there's one piece that I did that's kind of clever to sync it up in a nice way. And also I've kind of refactored it to be more hooks based compared to how the code was before. So we'll get more into that. And I should mention too that in a few cases, we're going to look at the code that I wrote during the week that we just had, because that's kind of how I do it. I do a stream, and then but between the streams, I'm kind of thinking about what I'm gonna do next, and I'll do a little coding. So I'm gonna peek at that, and we're gonna type it all out. Maybe there'll be a little copy pasting here and there, but we're all gonna do it in front of the thing, So I'm not gonna sneak in some code and surprise you guys or anything. Just so you guys know, just to reassure you. So we've done the recap. I think, yeah, like I said, it's time to get into the code. So as usual, let's do our NPM updates. Let's start where we start here. So I always start with the outdated command, and I always tell you guys that I start with the outdated command. Looks like there's a couple here today, mostly ESLint. Next has another update from 6 to 7. See, sometimes these are interesting. I like it when Next, like, that's the main framework for a lot of what I'm doing. For the code, it's that's what the React framework is that I'm using essentially. So it's of interest when like that updates to take a peek at it sometimes and be like, I wonder what they changed. So the way I usually do it is just going into the releases here, and you could see 10.07 and then just see what did they do. Core changes, nothing standing out already, If something was cool, maybe they'd have some emojis. There's no emoji stuff worth mentioning. Document updates, example changes. Looks pretty average. It's just a patch version, not even a minor version, and especially not a major. I don't know when next 11 will come out. Who knows? But yeah, so that was pretty unexciting as far as versions go. So let's switch back to the code and let's just update it. NPM update. And as you see, 3.js isn't set to update because of that issue we had with the wallpaper. Hasn't been fixed yet by Vanta.js. So I'm just going to leave that. We'll get our updates here. It looks like a big chunk of updates this time because it's taken some time. Because I got a fast computer, but it's not fast enough for node modules. Here we go. I'm going to run outdated again just to see that, yeah, looks like everything updated that I was hoping would. And let's commit that. That's odd. Didn't it say a bunch of stuff needed updating? 10.07, okay. So if I go into the package file and I look at next, why is it 10.06? That's weird, hey? It seems like my update command did not work. Did anybody else see that? I wish I'd recorded this, Well, maybe someone can explain to me what happened. I'm going to try to run NPM update again. Maybe it's related to the fact that it took so long. Because it didn't actually update my packages in my file here. Again, it did not. That's wonky, hey? So it updated the lock file. Let's delete the lock file. Let's just get that out of there. And let's do NPM. And let's delete the node modules folder too. Just for the heck of it. Because that's weird, hey? Maybe if I do an NPM I now. Yeah, that's weird. Let's try to figure this out, guys. This is the fun of NPM, I guess. I mean, it's hard to understand what I did wrong here, but it didn't update. Well, we're not going to mess with this too long because it's like, who cares? Like I said, it's a pretty uninteresting update. Let's even peek at what the next thing is. Yes. Well, let's not jump ahead. Let's just see if this works. So we got our install back. It should make another lock file, presumably. See, now it thinks it's deleted. It should come back. There we go. It's back and modified. So now if I do NPM outdated, you think it once again would consider things outdated. What? Huh. That is confusing as heck. I wonder what's going on there. So it's like wrong? Because it says the version. Is anyone else seeing this? So this is 10.06, but we know I don't have that. And when I do an update, it didn't really do anything. And now outdated doesn't seem to recognize that it's not right either. Well, let's just commit this and say attempted NPM update. Attempted NPM update. And that's one of those things I'm gonna add to the notes to try to figure out next stream. So next stream, why did npm, or why did package.json not update, right? And if someone knows the answer to that, throw it in the chat, throw it in a comment, feel free. But it didn't work, and you guys all saw it. So I'm just gonna let that slide, I think, for now. And move on to the next thing, which is fixing the repo EOLs. Right. If you guys remember in previous streams, I'd been running Prettier manually. That's something we're also gonna update. I'm tired of that. But when I was running it, it was always saying files had changed that hadn't really changed. Or I changed a file and then I didn't save it. Like I changed my mind and I just I deleted it and saved again. And that was being considered like an end of line change that Prettier felt it needed to change. And that's actually okay. And Prettier has some comments on my conundrum there. So let's check it out. So Prettier talks about end of lines and basically says if you want to ensure that this works, so Prettier by default is already doing LF and we're not overriding that. So we're asking Prettier to give us LF line endings. But what we're not doing here, I think, and when we save is that either Git or something else is automatically trying to change it. So we're going to be explicit with our Git attribute, which it suggests doing here. We already do all these other things. It's already the default here. We already have a pre-commit hook, and we already have check running in the hook. We don't have any CI stuff to worry about. Because yeah, we have, why does it say 2 and 3? Configured run, I don't see the need for both if you're doing the pre-commit hook and you've already cleaned up. I could be missing something there, but let's just say we've done those two. And then essentially this is the one that I'm missing because the Git repo itself, maybe it's doing Windows style and it's doing CRLF or something. Hard to say. I'm not really sure. That might be what this exactly says here. You may need to ask Windows users to reclone your repo. Yeah, possibly, because this is going to change everything, but that's okay. It might not need to change much because Prettier's already been messing with it. So let's go to the code and do what it's saying here. Let's make this file. It's called .git attributes. And we'll just take this little line right there that we need. And we'll paste it in there. And there we go. We save that. And let's run Prettier just in case there were some files that needed their line endings fixed. Looks like the several. So if you see, it's going to say a bunch of things changed. Yeah, but none of them, if you click into them, it's like, what changed? So that was these end of lines. So now that should be consistent. So it's fixed all those to be LF. And I've told Git, it's like everything should be LF. And I think if we look in our editor config, that's the case as well. Yeah, and our editor config also, its end of line is LF. So I'm not 100% sure why it's not working. We have the extension too, but let's just be explicit. Prettier suggests doing it this way. So it's like, great, let's do it. So let's say fixed EOL issue to always be LF. That was it, right? LF, yeah. I don't like the wording there, but let's just commit it and not overthink it. Okay, boom. So we got that one done. What's next on the list? So yeah, with Prettier, when I was saving my Markdown files, it hasn't done it here yet, but it's doing some auto formatting to them sometimes, and it just annoys me. So we're going to go into Prettier, and we're going to say, ignore all Markdown files, because I don't want Prettier doing any changes to these at all. So ignore Markdown in Prettier. Simple commit. What's the next one here? Switch to Stylelint recommended. Yeah. So throughout the week when I was playing around, Stylelint started complaining again. If you remember here, it's complaining about value keyword. And it started giving me stylistic complaints about other little things I was doing. And basically I decided that in my old code, I wasn't using standard. I was using recommended. And in maybe like episode 2 of these streams, I was like, why not use standard? It's more strict. I want more strict. But in this case, I don't think I do because I'm using styled components with a Stylelint styled components extension. So it's telling me how to do formatting in the same files that Prettier also has opinions about formatting. Whereas that might not always typically be the case. But anyways, I just don't want Stylelint to be dealing with that. And as another bonus, it gets rid of this rule, which I wasn't really happy with. So I think recommended is probably better than standard. I think standard is just a little too strict, to be honest. I'm not sure who that's for, but it's not for us. So let's realphabetize this. LMNOP There we go. And now we don't need this rule here. So there we go. So there's my explanation why I'm no longer using the strictest possible rules for Stylelint. I'm not a fan of them. Switched to recommended from standard for style lint rules. I went over, I don't care. Committed. There we go, another simple one. So this is one that I think call out to Daniel recommended to me in episode 1 or 2, or I don't know, 3, one of them, where I was running Prettier and he's like, you can just make that an auto format thing. And at the time I was like, I don't know if I will. But now it's like, yeah, I really should, to be honest. So let's do that. And in that regard, there's actually a Prettier VS Code extension that kind of works hand in hand with that we did not have, that I'd like to get, and also to recommend within the repo. So this is it here, 10 million people using it, so it's probably legit. So let's go into it here. Now I've probably already got it installed because I've already done this and I didn't uninstall it to do it for the video, but imagine I just installed that. So I'm going to copy the extension ID because we're also going to add that to our list here. Where is it? In VS Code extensions of ones that I recommend people use. And it's an ES one, so alphabetically that is where it goes. So there we go. So now we're recommending 5 different extensions for people when they install our stuff. And now to get to that auto formatting thing, I didn't prepare a link for it, but if we look at my code, I added it here somewhere. This one here. Let's just take a quick peek at that too. VS Code settings.json. Yeah, this is it here. So the settings you set here get saved as like a settings.json file when you save them. And unless I'm crazy, I put it in the repo and it seemed to be working. I don't know if they talk about it here that you can put it in repos. Perhaps they do. There's too many words there. But basically I want to do the same thing and just use the same format. So you see that's the format for the settings file. And I happen to know the settings here. If we look at them here, it was default formatter and format on save. And I think Prettier says something about that. Prettier VS Code auto format, let's say, and it should be easy enough. So if we click it here, maybe the extension even tells us what to do. Oh yeah, it exactly says what to do. So here's like the settings. So let's even just take these and we'll just use those. So basically in the same folder, I'm going to add a settings.json. I think it is settings or setting. Yeah, it's settings, and paste that in there. And I'm just going to see what I used here. Yeah, so default formatter. Just in general, I want to use Prettier because that's what I've been using anyways. Is just like Prettier for anything it supports. So we're just going to say the default formatter is Prettier. And then as far as the format on save, I don't know where I found that piece of information. Let's see here, VS Code. That might even be part of the Prettier thing as well. Yeah, they have it here. As part of the Prettier thing, they mentioned, hey, you can do format on save. So it's like, let's just copy that there. That sounds good. So here they've got for JavaScript, we just want it for everything. Now that we've told it to ignore Markdown, that's more helpful too. So just paste that in there like so. That's alphabetically correct. And there we go. So if we save that, my understanding is now this will auto format. So let's try. Let's mess this up slightly and press save. There you go. So you see it fixed it for us. Whereas before we would have had to run Prettier and have it do that little indent for us automatically. So that's going to make some of the coding a little easier on the videos. And now that I've found a way to add that setting into the repo, I think that's cool because then, so someone clones my repo, opens it, VS Code's like, here's some recommended extensions, and then boom, right away it works with the settings and you've got my formatter already. So that's the perfect world thing. Also, by the way, if you guys remember last episode, I was like wondering about a bunch of ESLint stuff not working. And I was like, maybe just restarting VS Code will fix it. It did fix it, by the way. So sometimes that happens with VS Code and some of the linting tools is they just don't start highlighting correctly. And VS Code's just like messed up. And sometimes even looking like, you can click here and see in the console, and sometimes it doesn't say anything and it's still messed up. So don't trust this as like a source of truth for much, to be honest. Okay, so we've done that. So what did we do here essentially? We added that auto formatting. And we added the Prettier extension being something we recommend. And I installed the Prettier extension previously. So that it fits in with the add extension and auto formatting. Yeah, so let's just copy that wording there. I like that. Added Prettier recommended extension and auto format. ing. Yeah, I like the ing. There we go. So we've already made it through these puppies here. Let's just see here. Remove explicit role. Ah, yes. So if you guys remember in a previous episode, everything's a previous episode, I guess, if you guys are going to remember it in its regards to this. Where's the desktop? There it is. So you see here I added role main, and that was because if you look at the MDN article for role main, it says in Internet Explorer even 11 that they didn't have a main HTML5 element essentially, and it wasn't auto assigned a role, and that could sometimes mess things up. But I went to IE 11 recently on my app, and it doesn't really work at all anyways. I don't know if it's the desktop or what, but even the old version didn't work, so I've decided rather than figure that out, I'm just not supporting IE. I don't want to anyways, so but I support Safari and Firefox and Chrome and all that stuff, Edge, Brave, probably, whatever the other ones are. The Chromium-based ones and such. So anyways, long story short, I'm just going to get rid of this. And the W3C was actually even saying, like, you don't need to explicitly say this. But at the same time, the MDN article says you do if you want to support IE11. So there is a possible little cross issue there. So what's it complaining about? Now it wants to auto-format it better. There we go. Now it's a one-liner. Cool. That's fine for now. That might never need to change even, honestly. So there we go. So we got rid of that role. And our test is still going to work, I believe. Because if you remember, our test is get by role main. But if you look at the styled component for the desktop, it is a main element itself. So if we run the test, presumably it's still going to work. The only test we have. There we go. Still passes. So there you go. All my tests pass. All one of them. So that is that for that. Let's just mention this here then. Remove explicit role as we don't support IE. I don't know. You can't do an emoji in the message, I think, but that's like a brrr, like nice. No IE support. That's a good decision, I think. So what's next here? Yeah, the processes reducer. I'm not a fan of it anymore, honestly. Maybe I never was. But this here, where it's like, it's more like a map reducer thing. Like, I don't even want a reducer. What I prefer is just a render processes function, and I pass the processes in, you know? That's just cleaner to me. So let's just say it's called render processes, and it just uses this, the processes. And what are the processes? They're processes. And what does it return? I don't know. What did I put that it returns? That's a good question. Oh, JSX element, presumably. Let's see if that's correct. Let's just see if it infers that. So basically we just want this. This was already good. We actually don't even need this piece, honestly. So get rid of this piece here, and we'll just directly return the object loop. And we'll move this piece into that, like so. Get rid of that. Oop. And what do we have here? Let's save it so it formats. That's nicer. And then we just need to do this. We need to say render processes, and that to me is a little cleaner. And then we got to figure out what this is angry about. What is it? We don't need to reference this anymore, I don't think, because we're already saying it's processes. Yeah, that helped that. And then last but not least, property component is missing in type key, but is required in process. That's deep. What does that mean? Oh, let me import this. It doesn't know the type. There we go. That fixed everything. That's pretty simple, actually. Maybe I should zoom in. Can you guys? I can zoom in a little bit more, perhaps. Yeah, it's bigger, but it looks cleaner to me. It's easier for you guys to read. So it goes over the 80 characters though. For that reason, I'm going to zoom out, and you guys tell me if it was okay before. So if anyone feels they can't read that, please leave a comment there, but I think that's still a legible size. So yeah, so here's my refactor. So now it's like process consumer just grabs processes and throws it right to this render processes. I wonder, yeah, I don't think there's a way around doing it that way. That's clean enough, honestly. That's pretty simple. And then render processes takes the processes and just straight up object entries, maps it, and throws it out there. That to me seems simple enough. I don't feel like that needs any more refactoring. So let's just use the exact wording we used here for that, because that's pretty clear. Switch process reducer to render processes function. Yeah, that's basically all I did. You guys saw it wasn't too much. So reorganize imports for context. Yeah, this is something that it did not automatically tell me. But I don't know why. Maybe if I run ESLint, and I just never did, npm run ESLint. Because I noticed this was buggy. There we go. Okay, yeah. So it actually does say, oh, it's in 3 places. So there's actually 3 scenarios where it slipped in that it's got the wrong order and ESLint didn't fix it. I wonder if that should have been caught. Let's add that to the next stream. So why weren't the sort order ESLint issues caught in pre-commit? Should they have been? I don't know, but for some reason I feel like they should have been. So let's write that down. So let's go into context and we'll see it pretty clearly. As soon as we click, it's like, oh, well, that's red. We just do a simple auto fix there. That's what they want. I don't even know what moved, but it's happy now. So same with this. And the other place was in themes, was it? Themes. Yeah, this also wants to change the order of. There we go. Simple enough. So now if we run ESLint, it gives us no backtalk. Cool. So that's all we need to do there. But I need to, it wasn't worded correctly probably. Reorganize imports for context. No, let's just say reorganize imports, yeah. And in the commit message, I'll say reorganized imports because I've done it now. So Stylelint, if you guys remember, this was another thing last episode that was busted. And I can show you right now that it's busted. If we go to styles, pick a style, and let's just say, let's call this a P. That's wrong. That can't be a P. So that's wrong. But if we run npm run stylelint as a scan, I don't think it's going to find anything. Right. And the issue is simple enough. I'm just scanning the wrong file type, basically. I was scanning TSX. There's probably some reason why. At some point, styled components I had at the same place as I had my JSX stuff. But it's TS files now. And I have to fix that here on the lint-staged as well, that when TS files change. There we go. So that part's fixed. So now if I scan this, maybe it'll give me an error. There we go. Oh, it's angry about lots of stuff now. Oh, okay. So two things. So this didn't get considered an error. I don't know why. Maybe that was just a bad mess up. Let me try this one instead. Let me try V. Okay, there. That's a Stylelint error. So let me scan for that. Yeah, for some reason bottom can be P. All right. There we go. So that's the error. So, but if you remember before when I did Stylelint, nothing showed up. So now all this stuff showing up is mostly the colors. I'm not supposed to use color name, and I'm going to remove that. But that's another thing that I feel like should have been caught. So I think that was my pre-commit hooks were a little messed up, but I'm not sure. Let's add that to our questions here. /stylelint, and let's just not say sort order. Why were the ESLint stylelint issues not caught in pre-commit? There we go. Oh, I already had it. I had some double negatives there. Why were that's better. That's a single negative. Still an unfortunately negative event. Okay, so let's fix this. So that's back to normal. And yeah, and we'll deal with the color in another thing here. But for now, we just fixed Stylelint scanning. So let's mention that because that's a big deal. But we probably still had a little bit of Stylelint checking built into the IDE. It was still catching some stuff because I was noticing it, but the scans were not. So change Stylelint to scan to TS. To scan TS, not TSX. Yeah, that's good. Good. Okay, now here's a cool one. I have to look at my code to remember how I did this. Let's just see. Not here. Where is it? Start button. There we go. Oh, yes, it's like this. Did I make a link to this? No, let's look it up. Styled components actors. This is kind of a neat thing. Hopefully this is the right page for it. Yeah, here we go. Here's an example. So with styled components, and going back to the code for a second to show you. So in my, where is it here? The start button. So the start button, this is a button, an HTML button element. And basically with button elements, by default, they're submit. I don't know if styled components are different. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but let's assume they're not, and let's assume that it is acting like a normal button. In that case, you have to specify type button to buttons. Otherwise, they are considered submit. And I was thinking, I wonder if this could just be inherent into the styled start button, that it already inherently works the way that I want the buttons to work. And that's where we get into these attribute settings, which they're just calling ATTRS. This is a chainable method that attaches some props to a styled component, right? And I don't know if it says the first and only argument. It doesn't really explain the use cases. I saw another page that explained when you would use it, but you see here's an example of an input where you always want the type to be text. So that's fair, and they've also the set size here. So basically, you can just inherently set HTML attributes to the styled components above just styling. So let's copy this little piece here because I like that piece. Let's go back to our code and let's go to our styled button. How do I open that? Just click here. There we go. And basically, I think I just paste it in there. Yeah, and get rid of this one. We don't need that piece, or do we? What happened there? Oh, I took one of these away. That should have been here? No, is that where that should have been? Let's check. Is the example wrong? I feel like the example's wrong. Let's take a peek at the example. See, the example here has this. Oh no, I'm just being wonky. The example, you would expect the example to be correct. That'd be cool if I caught it as wrong, but usually I'm the one that's wrong. So I actually fixed it. It's just angry for other reasons. Why? It's complaining about props. So we don't even need to pass props. We're not using props, so let's not. Let's just, it's a function that returns this object. I wonder if you even need the function. Let's try that. Can you even just get away with not even needing the function? Possibly, that'd be cool. So type button, and then here we don't need to say type button. And we're not going to use styled start button anywhere else, but I just like the idea that the styled start button also has other things. Like the idea that it's inherently set up to work the way we want, and then we can just focus on other customizations, like its events and like its title in this case. So we press save, it formats there. We press save to this, and it didn't blow up. And if we go into the code, let's go into the code in the browser because it's a little easier to see things. And we'll just move that, and let's go into elements, inspect this, get rid of this console. So you see we got button type. And if we go back into our code, and let's get rid of this. What was it, this piece here we cut out? Yeah, simple enough. We save that. And if we go back in, you see it's gone. Now it's not button type, and I'll just do it in the background here and press save. And you guys see it appeared. It appeared right here on this piece. So that proves it worked. So that's cool. We don't even need a function. So I like that little inherent ability to set attributes with the styled components. Styled components are amazing, actually. I'm really loving making them. Like compared to what I had before, I can't remember why I wasn't sold initially. I think maybe the setup kind of scared me off, but it was actually really easy to set up too, to be honest. So there we go. We've done that. So let's just, what did I word it as? Set button type. Yeah. Set button type in styled component attribute. Let's say attributes. Let's use the full word there. So is that what we did? Yeah, we removed it from there and it reformatted, and then we added it there. Cool. Another one bites the dust there. Right, default theme. That's another little issue. If we go to the theme, and this sometimes you gotta catch yourself in these scenarios because you're not gonna get an error from this. But basically, you see I've been defining the theme here, and then I export the theme, and I know this is the default theme type, but if you hover over this, it doesn't know what this is. It's like it's a type that is this exact thing that I am, basically. But that's not very good because then if I just add something like there, it doesn't know that that's, well, A doesn't exist in this case. 1 second. There. See, it doesn't complain about that because it doesn't know default theme doesn't have A. So all we have to do is just say, hey, this is the default theme, by the way. There we go. And now it's like, oh, A, that's not part of default theme. So that's what I wanted to do. And it imported it up here, and we have to fix it so it's a type. There we go. So cool. So just be explicit about that. And yeah, you got to catch yourself because like I say, you can define an object and it's not going to tell you, hey, this object's not the object I'm expecting because you never told it what to expect. And it's, in a way, it's not considered an any because it very much is clear that what the object is. It can be defined just by looking at the object itself, as TypeScript did there. But it's essentially an any, or it's an implicit any of some kind, but it's not something that ESLint seems to catch me on. Maybe there's a rule to be even more strict and get caught in those scenarios. Like, really no implicit anything. Define every single type. I don't know what that one is. So define, let's actually add that to the next stream as a thing to try to figure out. ESLint rule to require every single thing be typed. Example objects. All right, let's do EX for that. EX objects. Yeah, cool. So there we go. So we did that one. Let's move up to what's next. Move single-use types. Yeah. So about this, I think at one point I told you guys, like, I'm going to have every single type has to be in the types folder. But I'm not sure I like that. It's just making too many folders at the moment, too many files. And it seems a little unnecessary because you get files just because you have one thing that needs a type. And I'm just like, now I need a file for that. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to embed types though. I'm not going to do that. So like in this case here with themes, I'm not going to just go, okay, well, you know, this is a key. Oops. This is a key of that, whatever, because then you lose that there's a type there. Then it's just like there's a second object here and you're like, what is that? So I'm still going to have the types. I'm just going to put them in here with the code. So let's do it for theme. That's one of them. So no more exporting. We'll just do that. And in this case, now we have to import default theme there. That's okay. This is the themes anyways. And now the order's messed up. There we go. So that got rid of one file, and then the file is still pretty small, you know. So we got rid of an entire file, and we made one file from what, like 6 lines to 11 lines or something. Not a big deal. So let's get rid of that one. Delete that. The next one is wallpaper. Now I'm going to keep types in the type thing only when they're shared. So in the case of the wallpaper effect, that's basically shared because several things require that, I believe. Let's search for it here. So yes, in styled and in Vanta waves, we're using the wallpaper effect, and any future wallpapers would also need that wallpaper effect type. So I'm going to keep that in its own file. But the Vanta wave settings, that's pretty specific to the Vanta wave wallpaper. So I'm not going to even keep that in there, even though it's like, hey, it's a wallpaper, so let's put it in the wallpapers. No, because then like if someone else wants to add a wallpaper, they're going to mess with our types. That's silly. It should just be self-contained, I think. So where's Vanta again? It's in utils, Vanta waves, and I'm just going to put it at the top here. So there's the type right there, and then we don't need it here, and that cleans up the size. So there we go. So that kind of makes sense to put the type here. And I mean, sure, the file's a little long, but it's still nowhere near 80 lines, which is the rule we set, so that's fine. So save the wallpaper, we remove that one, or we got it a little shorter, not short enough. What else do we have in types? We also have these contexts. So the session context state we need, because that's in a couple places. Yeah, that's in the session itself, and it's in the hook for the session. Same with process. Context factory, no though. Let's get rid of context factory and just put that there. So where is context factory? Here it is. So we'll just put that there rather than do an import. There we go. I think that's fine to have there. And it makes it like, this again is just so small, 23 lines. You can just look at everything here and kind of figure it out. And now you don't even have to worry about that type being somewhere else. Although you could just hover over it to see it. So, but let's just let it live there. Small file still. So this doesn't need to exist anymore. Get rid of that. And I think we've done everything for types. There weren't a lot of types as it is. There's only 3 type files now. One for the wallpaper, for the session, and for the process. And these are all pretty much shared, I believe. I think this is used in several places as well. Yeah, in the loader and the context, yeah. And process, I'm not sure. I'm not going to search for that. It's probably okay. So there we go. So moved single use. Single use is probably the wrong word, but moved single use types beside their usage. Not the best commit message in the world, but it says something. So this, I don't remember if I tested changing this and having it work, but let's just try it one more time because I'm still not clear why I need overflow. I had to add overflow to the, I'm clear what overflow does, but I'm not sure why I had to add it because it used to not need it. So let's get rid of it here again and save. See, now the page looks fine. What if I refresh the page? See, yeah, now it's fine. I was getting scroll bars for some reason before, and it was just acting weird. My computer was acting a little weird. So I never needed overflow. I don't know why I thought I needed overflow. I'm going to get rid of it again, and if the scroll bars magically reappear, we'll add it again. But we need to understand why, because I very explicitly set the exact height and width of everything, and there's no borders or anything, so mystery. So no more question mark. Remove the need for overflow. So yeah, never needed it, got rid of it. Cool. So with that, I think we've done essentially the stuff that I'd like to call maintenance, housekeeping, and refactoring, and we've done it in 40-ish minutes, 44 minutes, let's say. Pretty good. Usually it takes me longer. And we can get right into the components. Now, I don't think I want to get to the clock first. I'm not sure. Yeah, let's not get to the clock just yet. Let's start with the style taskbar, because that gets us, once the taskbar looks better, then it'll be nicer to fix the clock, I think. So what did I say I wanted to do first? Well, I didn't really say what I wanted to do first, but I'll tell you guys what I want to do first. I want to do these two things first. I want to remove the colors that Stylelint was complaining about anyways, because we don't want any color in the taskbar. The only reason I colored it was just to kind of for illustrative purposes. So let's go into these components and get rid of that color. And in one case, the button case, let's just say right now, in the button case, I need to mention color still, and I need to say unset, because, actually, let's show you why. So watch, I'll get rid of it here, and we'll see that the color, see, now it's like a grayish white, right? What is that? That is a default that comes with button. Wah, wah. So we need to just say, unset that default for buttons. And we could do that globally. Maybe we should, actually, honestly. Maybe we should. That feels like a global rule worth mentioning, I think, because we'll probably have other buttons. So let's do that. So button, this is a global rule. Button, background not set. So I'll save this one. It's still going to show it as gray, but then if I save this, there we go. Now it's orange. And orange is the taskbar behind it currently. So now it is essentially transparent, which is what I wanted. Because yeah, the buttons shouldn't have default colors in their background. And yeah, it shouldn't be here because I think I put it here in my tweaking this week. But no, that doesn't need to be there. That's a global rule that I don't like buttons having default colors. I'm almost never going to use the defaults. I like to be explicit with all this stuff. It also makes it easier when you're making themes because if everything's been explicit, then it's easy to explicitly overwrite something. Whereas if you never even changed it, then you'd have to change the code in order for the theme to be able to do something about it. So let's get rid of these colors. So there's green gone. That should be now the clock is orange. The entry is purple. Nope. So now that's orange. And finally an entry is also not pink. And now that's orange. And then this is the actual finally, the taskbar. Let's get rid of it. Boom. Cool. So now we have a completely transparent taskbar. So I don't want to keep that long term. I'm just going to look at what I did last time. Or not last time, sorry, what I've decided to do because I don't remember the logic. I think I just did some fine tuning, but essentially I came up with some kind of like simple color. Here we go. Right. Yeah. So basically like black, but with a 60% opacity. And the way to do that is with this RGBA. So if we go into the taskbar, we're going to keep a background color and we're going to say it's this, and we're just going to see what that looks like. So you see there above, you can't really see the text right now because it's all black, but that looks reasonably cool. You can see that it's a little transparent. And the RGBA, the A stands for alpha, and the alpha is like the transparency level, basically. And these zeros are essentially defining black. I'm not sure if there's other ways to do this. There probably is, but yeah, there's probably other ways to adjust the opacity as a separate CSS variable, but I like this condensed approach anyways. So we're gonna keep that. Let's try it a little darker. It looks different on the video probably, so you'll probably have to take my word for it. I feel like that's too dark, honestly. Like, I don't have a good thing to show you guys to compare, but maybe just let's do 65% and see how that looks. No, I like 60. So yeah, I don't know if you can do 60%. Can you? Seems like you can. I wonder if 60% is nicer than 0.6. I think it probably is. I think I probably will do percentage for the alpha like that. 0.6 is too computery, and I don't need to do that. So too computer programmery. So cool. So we've gotten rid of all those colors, but we've kept a taskbar color of this 60%. Now I want to extract this out to a theme element because we're doing that now. We're getting everything into themes until we set up orientation. Orientation's gonna, like some stuff we haven't put into themes, like this here, 100 VW, because I'm just saying, yeah, the taskbar is 100% of the width. But once we have orientations that can go on other sides, like how you can drag your taskbar, then we're going to have to tweak that to also be perhaps partly in the theme, or at least conditional. Anyways. So what did I copy here? I got my RGB. I need that for a second. So now, not sizes, now it's colors, taskbar. Yeah, just colors taskbar, I think. It's the taskbar. So let's go to the theme, default theme. And in colors, let's call it taskbar. And we decided it's this, right? So we'll just put that as the color then. Simple enough. And now we need to add this taskbar to the type, which is right somewhere. There it is. No, that's not it. Yeah, here it is. This is a little confusing that it's in something called styled. Could I make, I don't know if I could make that easier and put it in themes or something. I think it's fine here. It's just not, I don't always remember that it's there. Elemental P, QRS, T, yes, here. There we go. So let's just save that, and now we should have moved it out. So you see the taskbar color remained how I wanted it to, even though now it is dynamic, like so. And you see if we change it to something that doesn't exist, we get an error, and if we try to save that, the color goes away, we fix it, the color comes back. Very simple to test. So cool, so that cleaned up the colors, I think. That taskbar looks a lot more similar to how I like mine. We haven't added the blur effect yet, but I'm gonna do that right next, actually, so stay tuned. So let's commit what we got here. So we removed colors from subcomponents. Yeah, that's simple enough. Remove colors from subcomponents and updated taskbar color. There we go. Cool. So now let's do that blur effect that we want. And basically to do that, we are going to use a backdrop filter. And I can quickly peek to you guys and show you what the backdrop filter is all about. I didn't have a link for that one either, but it shouldn't be too hard to find. MDN, best resource for this kind of stuff. So the backdrop filter CSS property lets you apply graphical effects such as blurring or color shifting to the area behind an element. That is exactly what we need. Now there's other ways to do it, and unfortunately this is not supported by Firefox, which is kind of a bummer. I think down the road I'm going to make some kind of cool thing that'll do blurring and maybe polyfill for Firefox, or use some kind of SVG type of blurring effect. There are ways to do it in Firefox, but it's a little more involved, and I'm not going to mess with it right now. I'd prefer just one setting that works on a decent amount of browsers, like Edge probably. Even the pre-Chromium Edge probably would work. I don't know. Plus Chrome, plus I think Safari it works on. She's done. She's empty, boys and girls. So yeah, let's do this. So here's a simple example of it. Backdrop filter blur 2. Now again, I'm not going to spare you the details of fine tuning. I picked 5 pixels as my blur. So let's slip that in here alphabetically. So yeah, that looks good, but instead, like I said, I wanted 5 pixels for the blur effect. So let's say how it looks. So it's probably not super easy for you guys to see. Let's switch to browser and let's go to open it here, and I'm going to ultra zoom in so you can maybe see it. So you can see there's definitely a blur going on behind the background. It's pretty cool. It's easier to see when you're using the thing, like as a user. So you'll have to take my word for it, but it looks pretty good. Oh, I wonder if it's a zoom level thing. Oh, this is the overflow issue, I think. If I zoom like crazy, then I get scroll bars. Let me put the overflow back on and see what happens. So overflow hidden. I'm putting the overflow back, and the scroll bars go away. Okay, so let's keep that because I don't always need it, but I do need it when I'm doing ridiculous levels of zoom. Because otherwise it fits fine. It didn't need to overflow, but for some reason the zoom it made it think it did. So I'm going to consider that wrong, and I'm going to say that overflow fixed it. So we're going to do another commit to put overflow back here. Let's do that right now. So, oh, I do need overflow when zoomed to 200%. There we go. So let's just keep it, because it doesn't hurt to have, I don't think. I mean, we do want overflow to be hidden, but there shouldn't even be any overflow, you know? I want overflow to not exist, which is why I was explicit, but you don't want to cooperate. So what? Now I was adding blur, right? Back to the blur, guys. So as you saw the blur when we zoomed in to the level where we got those wonky scroll bars. So cool, we want 5 pixels. Let's also turn this into, you know, a themable item. So we'll just do that. And then we'll take blur here, and we're going to turn this into blur with a template literal, like so. And this part's the variable. And then the blur effect is like so. Blur. There we go. And what do I want to call blur? It's not a color. An effect? That's a tricky one. Let's see what our theme options are. Default theme. So we got colors, fonts, sizes, I guess it's like the size of the blur. It's in pixels. Let's just say sizes for now. So taskbar already exists. And we'll just call it blur. Blur. And we decided 5 pixels, right? Cool. And we got to add that to the theme. Like so. Blur is a string. And then we just have to specify it here because we didn't put the right one yet. So it was .sizes.taskbar.blur. There we go. And if we save all of that, and there we go. We still have our blur, if you guys can see. I think, yeah, it's still blurry, Cool. So there we go. So we've also added our dynamic blur. And why is it 3 changes? Oh yes, because we had to change the theme. So added blur effect to taskbar. So that's looking a little more Windowsy minus the coloring parts, right? So what's the next thing I wanted to do involving the taskbar is I wanted to switch that X, that's the startup X, you can see it. Can you see it here? You basically can't see it, but I'm hovering the mouse over it right there. You see my mouse wobbling. There's an X there, and we want to have a Windows icon there instead. Now I want to show you guys some pages so you guys see that I'm not crazy, but Font Awesome, if you guys know Font Awesome, it's pretty cool. They have a free version. It gives you tons of icons to use. Here's the way to do it in React. We're going to install it in a second, but I just want to show you guys that one of the icons they have is exactly what we need. Exactly what we need. Look at that. There's a Windows icon in their brand package. Their brand styles are totally free. Now, what does this say? This work includes material that may be protected as trademark. You have to ensure that you have legal right to do so, that you do not infringe. Well, I'm not really using it in any legitimate way. I mean, it's debatable, obviously, but I mean, where's fair use, guys? Like, let's just see how it goes, because I could always change the icon to be something else. But this is coming from the Font Awesome thing, and I'm definitely not making any money off any of this, you know? And anyone can change it to whatever. That's going to be themable as well. Hey, that actually is a cool idea for the theme. How would I do that? The icons could be in the theme. I didn't even think of this earlier, but that's something I'm going to try to do. So let's get into it. So let's go back to that Font Awesome page and see how to install this. So we need a couple things. We need this one. We need 2 of these. We don't need 3 of them. So let's copy this and let's tweak it a bit. Just put it in here. So we need the core, but we don't need the solid icons. We're just needing the brand icons right now. So let's just install those 2 things. And we don't, not save dev. This is going to be part of the package. Okay, so where's my terminal? There we go. So let's install those 2. That was fast. And the package file actually changed this time. There we go. So we got those 2. And if we go back into the browser and we look, we need that brand one. There it is right there. Brand. Additional styles, they call it. So we'll put that one in there too. And while it's doing that, let's just go back to the browser and see how to use this thing. So that's pretty simple, right? Like that. And for the icon piece, we can actually use an element as well. I don't see them showing. Yeah, here's a perfect example of it. This is an absolutely perfect example. But let's just take this piece and see if auto import can figure out the rest. So now we need to go to our start button, right? Because that's what we want to work with. So here's our start button. Close this. No, not that. That's the styled start button. I want the real thing. There's the start button I care about. Actually, let's open the styled one too, because we're going to need that pretty darn soon. Because we're going to have to change the coloring a bit. But so here's the X right now. So let's just replace that with a Font Awesome icon. And let's go like that. And no, it's not very smart at auto importing that for some unfortunate reason. Let's just use the example one then, because the example was easy enough. These are the 2 examples. Hopefully I'm back here soon, guys. Am I back live? Hopefully. There we go. Sorry guys, OBS crashed on me again. I don't know what's up with it. That's the second time it's done that. The computer definitely didn't seem like it was choking, but OBS just kind of flopped on me, which is unfortunate. Let's set this stuff up again. So you didn't miss too much, guys. I was just messing with the imports. But oh, it's actually interesting. At the same time I was messing with the imports and trying to press a button, that's when OBS crashed. So I wonder if there's some kind of VS Code OBS fight going on. I don't know. I need to fix something. I might switch to VS Code Insiders Edition, which is like their newer version, just to see if it fixes anything. And then as far as OBS, I don't know what I'm going to have to do. Maybe in the crash logs it'll tell me what happened. So maybe I'll put that in the stream notes for another thing. Why did OBS freeze again? There we go. So, but yeah, you guys didn't miss too much. I was just trying to mess with the imports here to get them right. I found the brand import that I wanted. I found the FA windows. And if we put that there, I think that alone should be enough if I press save that we at least see the Windows icon. And we do. I don't know if you guys can see it because it's so dark. Let's go right to switching the color. So one cool thing is that although this is an SVG, you don't have to change fill. You can change color because Font Awesome has just kind of set that up to work that way. I believe they've kind of, it's like a font basically. I mean, it's called Font Awesome, so it's an SVG. It's a font. I don't know what it is, but let's just do the color here. I think white is what we want, and I think white is FFF. Let's see. No, it's 000. 000. Or let's just put the word white. Maybe it is fill that we need. Or yeah, let's try fill instead. Huh. What am I doing wrong now? So let's try to make it a lot bigger and see what happens. Font size 12 pixels. Okay, yeah, that made it smaller. Let's quickly switch to the browser and see what I did for the settings here, because I thought I did exactly that. Yeah, here we go. So I actually picked the font size of 19 for that icon, and it was FFF that I went with. I'm pretty sure I did FFF, and it did not respect that. Is it color or is it not color? Let's try this one more time. Oddly, it's remaining black. Let's try font size 19 and see if that works at least. That works reasonably well, although it looks pretty big, to be honest. Maybe 18 is more reasonable. 18 looks more correct to me. We'll probably tweak that later. Maybe I'll make a note for that, but let's just put font size where it's supposed to be. Where does that go alphabetically? There we go. So let's focus on font size first before we figure out this color situation. Yeah, that's weird about the color. That's odd. Let's actually take a peek at the code again, or that I already had written, and just see what happened. If I go icon.color, it's just color, and it's in the start button. And that's what I was editing here, was I not? Yeah, the start button. Why is it not white? What if we just refresh this page? What if I just press right click and reload? Still not white. What if I inspect it? Why is it not white? We'll mess with that in a second. Let's get this font size genericized. So that needs to be a theme item. That's also sizes, I think. Or is that fonts? Do I have a fonts thing? I don't think so. That fits right in with sizes. But let's just check the theme again to make sure. So we got sizes. I think font. Well, we have fonts too. Oh, okay. So we have a clock font already. Yeah, let's. But the start button is not really a font. It's just tricky that font size changes its size almost. That's like a, yeah, that's a hack. So let's keep it in sizes then. So the start button size is, what did we decide? 18 pixels for now we decided, even though I put 19 earlier. Although I'm really zoomed in, so I wonder if 19 is correct. Let's just go with 19 and trust it for now, until it doesn't work. And then color as well. Color was going to be up here, I guess. It seems so fractured the way I'm doing it. The sizes, colors, maybe not. Colors, sizes, but then fonts I don't like. Font is a size. Let's just put that there. Maybe I should say font size. No, let's just get rid of fonts though, because I think like that's too much. We got sizes, we got colors. Font's a size, it's based in pixels. So let's put that here in the clock. So the clock size is 12 pixels. And then we just have to fix the clock. So sizes, here we go. Theme.sizes.clock.size. Theme.sizes, yeah, okay, cool. So let's get rid of fonts. Let's get rid of it from the theme, and then let's add what I did here. So no more fonts, that's just confusing us. Take that though. There we go. And we also wanted to add that to the start button, right? Start button size. So start button size. Yeah, and that's correct. So that should probably work when I save everything. Cool, so that piece is still working. And then this is correct. And for colors, I don't have a color right now, so let's set the color again. That elemental PQRS start button. And its color, as we've established, is white. Totally should be working. I don't know why it's not. Maybe it's something to do with my primary color. Let's check that out. Oops, start button, start button. So, colors, start button. There we go. So there we go, we set it again. We have to set that here. It's a little tedious how many times you have to set things in the theme, but maybe I'm just changing too many things in this commit. So I save all those, now the start button's white, miraculously. That's weird that it didn't work earlier. I don't even want to think about why. Oh, I know exactly why. Isn't it? Or maybe I don't, but let me see. Yeah, because I was using the quote structure, but here in the styled component, you don't have to use quotes. So let me undo my undo here. So let's just, I'm gonna copy that and then go back a step or two. Just to double check that I'm not totally crazy. So if I save this again, it's black again. And then if I get rid of those quotes, there we go, now it's white. Yeah, so that's all I had to do, but I wasn't thinking straight. So cool, so we got our white start button. And I think that's the correct size. Let me just quickly, I'm gonna go into the browser and open it here. And you guys won't really be able to see this on the screen, but if I maximize the window so I could see it next to mine, that looks massive. Oh right, but I'm zoomed in a bunch. I forgot that I'm zoomed in here. So it's probably okay. If we go back to the code and we go to 100%, that's 100%. Yeah, that looks like the right size to me. I'll tweak it next episode if it makes sense to. So there we go. So we got our white start button that looks like a Windows start button. That's a pretty good step. I wonder if it should be 18. It just seems too big to me, honestly, now. Let's switch it to 18. Start button size. Let's see what 18 looks like. Oh yeah, I don't like the look of 18. Okay, 19 it is. So let's keep that. So what have we changed? Let's take a peek. So we added the font awesome stuff. We added the icon to here, and we got rid of the X. Where is the thing to resize this? There it is. Yeah, we got that. And we added the font awesome stuff. Oh right, I wanted to make this themable. Yeah, let's make it themable now because that's a cool idea. Let's just see if we did anything else though that was messed. The font size and color, right? Oh, the clock here. What did we change here? We moved the clock. Oh, we did two things here now. Why did I do that? That makes the commit a little harder because I snuck in a little tweak. Let's not worry about it. Let's just say it's all part of the same change. But if you remember, I took the clock font theme piece. No more fonts in the theme right now. It's just colors and sizes. Because the font size is a size. So let's just put it in sizes, right? Maybe we could call it font instead, like font size or something. I'll think about renaming it, but let's not worry for now. Because it is a little confusing. Start button size, start button width. It's like, which is which? Maybe I should call it icon size. Let's do that. Icon size for the start button. And then we just put it there. And then we don't even need to know that, oh, you set font size to set the icon size. It's like, that's an implementation detail. Don't worry about that. And then same here with the clock. Let's call the clock one font size because that is the font size. And then we go back in here and fix the clock one to be font size. And then we have to fix the theme here in both scenarios. That's font size and that's icon size. There we go. That's a little cleaner, I think. And then, yeah, otherwise that's good. So let's make this themable because that's a cool idea that I just had. So this is the piece we need to be themable. We need to let people specify the icon. So let's do that part first by going into our default theme. And where will that be? Could we say icons? Do we want to have an icons part of the theme? I guess so. And then every icon is customizable. Does that make sense? Do we want people to be able to do that? I think so. I think that does make sense, to be honest. But it won't always be a font awesome icon. So it would have to be the entire component, I think. Let's not worry about making it themable right now, I guess. I mean, we could, but do we want to, you know? I mean, I think also I'd like to make this I18N internationalized so that it's part of a file where all the words are, but let's put those to next stream, right? Let's close. Oh my god, I had a lot of files open here. Jeez, so many. Okay, so as another next stream thing, make icons themable. And what was the other piece of that I wanted to do? Not important enough to remember. So that's a good piece right there. Make the icons themable. We'll do that the next stream. So I think we're done with this. I like this. So now we got a start button. So added proper start button icon. Now we don't have the hover effects yet, but that's going to add another little pop too once we have the hover effect. Right now, if you hover over it, nothing happens. It's like, who's to say this is a button? I click it, nothing happens. But one step at a time. So we're not even going to mention the clock. I'll say and reorganized theme sizes. And reorganize theme slightly. Theme, yeah, reorganize theme. Cool. So that's another nice piece to add to the taskbar. Starting to look more like a taskbar. So we did the color, did the blur, did that. Yep. Oh, right, the font. That's the next one. I mean, that gets into the clock almost. Maybe I should move that to the clock for now because you can't really see the text. But when we get to the clock, we're going to make the text more visible right at the start. Let's just do that now, I guess. But yeah, let's move this to the clock. So when we get to the clock, let's deal with the font, which is right now. Let's do the color first. I'll make a note of that. Change text color. Cool. So let's just go right to the theme so we know we have to put that somewhere. That's going to be in colors. And let's just call it the clock text. No? Does that make sense? Yeah, clock text. Because the clock itself, the box, is not going to have a color change. But the text, yes, the text is going to be white, like the start button. Or is it? I think I actually was undecided. Let's just see what I used in the code because I actually might have not used that. Oh, okay. So I actually used an 80% opacity for the clock. I think that does look closer to how the clock looks on Windows. So let's again just say that that's a fine tuning that I did and we'll just accept that one. So I did the same thing, the RGBA, this time 255s, make it white, and then an 80%. And remember I decided to use percentages here because that's cleaner rather than 0.8. What's 0.8, you know? Cool. Clock text color. That's nice. This window piece is legacy, primary, background. Background's not. Background's not, but the others are. I'll remove those at some point maybe, or at some point we'll have a window and then it'll make sense to set that. I just haven't removed it yet because there is a window component. So long story long there. What's the style window? Yeah, I'm using the color anyways. So now we need to add to our theme this. I haven't been alphabetizing these, I now notice. Or have I? I think I was and then I just stopped here. Let's not do that. This should be here. Elemental P, QRS, TUV. Yeah, but I don't think I was doing that here for some silly reason. Keep it alphabetical, Dustin. There we go. So there's the color for the text. So now we have to, of course, pass that information along. So we're not even setting the color currently. But let's color. And we know it's colors.clock text. And let's save that. Cool. Now we have white text. So you see right there, right up there, there it is. We have the clock and you see that it doesn't move because we haven't actually added the code for the clock. And that's obviously an important piece, what we're about to do. And also the font doesn't look quite right. That's something we're going to change as well. But let's do the thing first. So changed clock text color. Coolio. There we go. So yeah, now when we talk, if you remember, I was mentioning about fonts and that I've decided not to include a font at this point from a I don't want to worry about licensing and think about it right now kind of thing. Too much at least. I mean, I have this icon now, but basically for that, I want to use something called the system font stack. And the stack is just kind of a bunch of fallback fonts that you can use. So you're like, when you specify font family, essentially, which is what we're going to do in the body here, in our global. And this is the one GitHub uses, I guess. So it says like, try to use the Apple system font, and then if not, use this one. And then here's the Windows one here. And then try Roboto, and then try Helvetica, Arial, you know? And just kind of go down the list. Now this obviously is silly. What's this emoji one and stuff? I don't want to use that. So I'm not a fan of that one. Here's the WordPress one. So you see a lot of them use this anyways. That gets to my next point here, which is interesting. And the one I've decided to use, I don't even know where it comes from. Actually, let me show you another URL too. This one here, systemfontstack.com. That's pretty straightforward. This also has a pretty interesting looking one. That's cool. The sans serif. I think we want the sans serif one. So as far as the one that I've used and the one that looks interesting to me, I'll show you. If we go into global style here and we make a body element to specify font family, and then if I type system, you see it already starts suggesting something to me. I don't know what this is. If I highlight over it, it doesn't really tell me, but if I click it, it's like, okay, that's actually not bad. It's like, there's the Windows one, there's this Blink one, the Segoy one, the Roboto. They do these Oxygen and Ubuntu. Those might be Linux, and this Cantrell, I don't know. Then they go Open Sans, they go Helvetica New, Sans Serif. It's like, that's not so bad. Because down the road, I'm probably not gonna, I might include a font at some point if I want to be very specific, but I haven't considered how best to do that yet. So I haven't done it yet. And then on a final note to this, if you go CSS system font, there's actually a system font now. It might have been mentioned on this page that we were on. Let's see, they don't mention it here in this part, but there's actually a font called like system. Here it is, here I guess. System. For some reason I thought it was called something else. Is it called system? If you see, if you type CSS system font, you get a lot of the stuff that I was kind of just looking at. I was hoping for an MDN article. Here we go, font family. If I search for system UI, that's the one I wanted, right? System, yeah, they even talk about it here. Glyphs are taken from the default user interface font on a given platform. So that's at least ideal when someone is looking in Windows 10, because that's what that's the platform I want. So that's the sneakiest way I can think of to use their font for now. So let's put that in there. But again, I'm not profiting off this. This is just for fun, guys. So come on, be cool. So I'm gonna say, let's try to use System UI first, and I think it's never gonna go past that because it's gonna find something there. But anyways, we got our stack of fallbacks. So cool, so I save that, and if we see the clock should change. So you see the clock has changed, and you guys can't tell necessarily, but that clock is the exact font of the Windows clock, basically. I'm actually not 100% sure it is exact because I spent a lot of time looking at it, and it's not perfect, the spacing, you know, that's the thing that's different. And there actually is a thing in CSS called letter spacing, and we might tweak it a little bit. I don't know if I tweaked it in my other one, but it's a cool little neat thing to tell you guys about because I didn't know about it. I don't know if other people do. See, I didn't even do it before, but if we look, I can show you. It's a CSS variable, not W3 schools. Here we go. So there's this letter spacing, and you can actually adjust the spacing between the letters. So if the Windows clock uses that font, the system font, then it's doing some kind of letter spacing tweaking because I never could get it perfect exactly, you know? But I got it pretty close anyways. So back to our code. So yeah, that's essentially all I wanted to do here is just add the system font stack. So let's just say added system font stack to body. So now everything in our system will try to use the Windows System UI or whatever OS you happen to visit with, basically. And in the future, we might add a font and make it very explicit, but that gets into a whole bag of problems I don't want to discuss right now. So I don't know the best way to jump into the clock here because we're going to have to look at my code because I can't remember completely. I'm actually going to show you my old original code for it because that's what I just started with. So if we go to components, system, taskbar clock. So here's my original code, and you see it's quite a bit. It's quite lengthy. It's 58 lines. Now I found a way to split this into essentially 2 different hooks, and then a little bit of rendering basically. And we're going to use it a bit the same. So basically, there's a piece that essentially updates the time. I've made that a lot easier. I've thought of a much easier way for that. There's a piece that does the formatting. Actually, this is a lot more than a bunch of lines, because there's these elements here that do the formatting. And I've moved all that out as well to something a little more clever, hopefully. So let's just get right into it, and I'll start just showing you. So let's just jump into the code here and go to the styled clock. We don't have to worry about the style. Let's just go to the clock itself. So right now you see the clock's a little bit hard-coded. Let's not remain that way. Let's turn this into a function, and it's going to return this like that. And let's just get right into writing it the way we want it to be. So like I said, we're going to have a hook that returns all this data that we used for rendering. And we're also going to add another piece that's the title. That's going to be like when you hover over the Windows clock right now, it gives you the date, like Friday. Let me just see what mine says here. February 20, 2021, Saturday. Okay. Let's just say Saturday, February 20, 2021. Something like that. We'll save that. Prettier will tweak that. So yeah, it's complaining why is it, oh, because I haven't written my function yet here. So let's imagine a hook. What did I use for wording? I'm just going to use, I've actually got it in my notes, to be honest, what hooks, the naming for the hooks that I decided on. Where was it? Here it is. I went with these 2 hook names. So let's just use those. Let's just get inspired by seeing those names. So I want something that gets us the time in the correct locale. And for that, I'll show you guys what function I'm using. So basically, to get the locale time, there's a function in JavaScript called where's the link called? Here it is. I'm just going to go into the browser and show you guys this. It's called the intel.datetimeFormat. And you see here, that lets you specify a locale and actually format your date. And it also lets you specify a lot of information about how you want these pieces to look. Like, I want you to show the 12-hour time, the 24-hour time, the whatever. So I don't have to worry about any of that logic. This is something built into JavaScript, and it allows me to use the locale, which, if you guys remember, we now set with Next.js. So we're going to be able to pull in the locale, and if someone changes the locale, it'll even change the time, which is cool. And as far as what format to use, I think there's another page. I think it's this page here. No, let me find the page. I have another link to the page that tells us the formatting we can use, because it's interesting to see as well. It is right here. Yeah, so this is the syntax for this piece here, where you kind of can fill in how you want the time to format and spit out. And there's so much options, like date. There's just these preset date styles. But like I say, there's hour 12, hour cycle, format matcher. You can specify all these little pieces here. And I'll show you exactly how I've specified them. And I think there's some examples here. Is there any good examples? Yeah, even those aren't good examples because they're using the style one, which is like the everything. I'm going to pick and choose which pieces I want. So I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here when we get into it. But let's just start writing how we want this to go. So use locale time, and we're going to pass in the current time. We're going to save the time as a state. So let's say set now equals use state. And we'll set the initial one as the current time. We'll make a new date, like so. And what do we want to return from this? We want the date, which will display in the title, right? That's the date. We want the time, right? Which will display here as the time. And we want the date time, because that's something that W3C requires from an accessibility point of view. Although I don't think it's meant to be used as a clock, to be honest. It's more for timestamps, but this makes it W3C valid, and yeah, why not? So we also need to export the date time. Cool. So the date time is like that, and not in quotes. So there we go. So we made all of that dynamic. If we save, it did not put it on one line, so it's going to stay like that. So we don't have this hook yet. We can import this. There we go. Because that's a React piece. And we don't have things for setting yet. So that's another piece that I wanted to do. And this gets tricky. We'll have to discuss like 10 different things going on at some point. So the next hook I wanted was use sync clock. Now the synced clock is essentially, I just want a timer. like set interval, which is a JavaScript function that allows you to kind of run something under certain intervals. But the reason I'm calling it a synced clock and I'm using a hook is I'm going to let this hook start the interval at the exact time that the system is about to do the next second. So that way the clock will be synced up basically at the same time. So then you'll see that the system clock and my clock won't be out of sync at all, even by 1 second, hopefully. Milliseconds perhaps, but whatever. So again, I'm going to use a cool hook here, and all that this is going to do is be passing in the update clock function, whatever that happens to be. And we're going to have to define it here. So all that update clock is going to be for now is going to be a function that basically just sets the now time again. And it's the exact same concept here where it just sets it to the next whatever the time is. So that's the basics of the clock. Let me get rid of this. So you see there, now we've extracted all the logic and we just have to put these two hooks to use. So when it starts up, this hook is going to sync up the clock and it's going to make sure that the update clock function runs when you want it to. And the update clock function is just resetting now. And whenever now changes, it gets passed into this other hook that returns these three things based on the locale. And the reason that it's a hook is because the locale requires me to use another hook to get the locale. So it's a pretty cool little use there. And let's get into the specifics then of the sync clock function first. So let's make a hook called use sync clock. And we'll do just the boilerplate stuff where we have to define the basics. Const that. And what did we say we passed in? We passed in the callback, which is the callback. I guess we could call, no, this is called callback. That's what it is. And it's a function that returns void because we don't care about what it returns. And like so, why is it complaining about that? Okay, yeah, that's fine. And we export that as the default function for this file. And the use sync clock does not return anything as you saw here. It's not going to a constant or anything. So that's defined, and now we need to specify what we do. So like I said, it's gonna happen as soon as the DOM is created. So we'll use a useEffect command to say once everything's rendered, we want this to occur. And we want that function to occur. And if the callback changes, you'll have to rerun the function. There we go. And what do we want to happen? So let's start with the naive approach, and let's just say we want to set an interval that it runs the callback, every second. So let's save that and see what it complains about. It's actually totally okay with that. And now we can import this piece. Okay, cool. So we actually got that piece working. We don't have to use locale time. So this is the very naive approach essentially, in that as soon as it runs, it just onloaded the DOM. Every second it's going to update the clock. But the thing is, there's some things missing here. First off, if you set interval, it's only going to start updating the clock on the next second. So we need to run this callback first so that we don't even get out of sync. So as soon as it loads, it's going to show the correct time. And then a second later, it would show the next time. But you see the problem with that. Let's say it loads and then 10 milliseconds later is the next second. You're essentially 990 milliseconds off now, because first you ran this callback and show the second that is happening. 10 milliseconds later, the system clock changes. And then 990 milliseconds later, you change to what the system clock is. So you're almost completely out of sync. So what we want to do is not do that. We want to set a timeout, I think. Yes, we want to do a set timeout. And a set timeout just runs once. So we want to say at least once. And when would this run? Because we're actually going to get the initial second here. When the clock first loads and it's passed in this time here, that is already the correct current time that the load occurred. So now should correctly work here, I think. I wonder if that's a concern though. No, I don't think so. So yeah, it's going to be instantly updated when the DOM, is it when the DOM loads though? That's a concern I have. Let's not worry about that detail right now. And we don't need this callback is what I'm essentially saying. So when the useEffect first occurs, we don't have to update because we probably already have the current second. We just need to make sure that it updates whenever the next second's about to happen. I guess there could be some race condition where you're like 1 millisecond away from the second changing, and then you might get some wonkiness where it's off by an entire second. Could that occur? That would be rough if that happened. Let's just not worry about that scenario for now. But you guys can tell me if you think about that. So set timeout. What does set timeout need to do? It needs to run once. So it needs to run for what the next second will be. So how do we calculate that? So let's say an entire second in milliseconds minus however many milliseconds have already occurred in the second. And how do we do that? We need another new time. We can go new datetime dot get milliseconds. There we go. So let's say that within this second, there's already been 700 milliseconds. So if I do 1,000 minus 700, I get 300. So there's 300 milliseconds left until the next second. So I'm saying 300 milliseconds from now, I want you to do the update clock function, and I want you to then start an interval of the clock every 1,000 milliseconds. So that makes a bit more sense to me. So I like that a bit better. Now there's two little things I want to do right off the bat. I want to set a constant here. I don't want to use 1,000. That's a magic number, they call it. In other words, a number where you're like, what's 1,000? Now in a lot of cases, people are going to know, okay, that's 1,000 milliseconds, but you might not. So I'm going to use the same wording here, milliseconds. So milliseconds in second, right? That's what it is. It's how many milliseconds there are in 1 second. And we'll use that constant to replace this 1,000. So it's a little longer, but now it's only in one place, and it's a nice little constant to have. There might be some built-in JavaScript constant for that. I don't know, but until I find one, I'm fine to just set my own. So that's cleaned it up a bit, but is there more we could do? I don't know. Let's go back to the code that I wrote, because I don't completely remember every little piece of it. Let's just see what I said here. So it looks a little more complex. Yes. Right. Because this is a use effect. Remember, use effect can return a cleanup function. And the cleanup function is useful because even every time you do a save and you get this refresh in dev mode, it's going to rebuild it. So if you don't have those cleanup functions, you're going to get things messed up. So what do we need to clean up in this case? We need to clean up the timeouts. Because if we do a save and it reruns this effect, it's going to make another timeout. So we have to say that that previous timeout has to stop. Now, something with set interval and with set timeout is it returns a integer, and that integer is essentially a reference to the clock to turn it off. And something I learned here, I'll get into this in a second what I learned, but let's write this down. So we do let because it's going to change, and we'll call it the timeout ID, I guess, yeah. And it's nothing by default. And right off the bat, we're going to set this. So if you refresh the thing before the set timeout even occurs, you want that to clear. But then if it's occurred, we want to overwrite that, and now we want the clearing to be the set interval. Because set timeout's only going to happen once, so it's going to clear itself anyways. But after it's occurred, then we move it here so that this changes. Now if we hover over this, we can see that it's a Node.js timeout, it's calling it. So let's use that as the type, just to be clarify. Now what's it complaining about here? It's assigned a value but never used. That's true. That's because we haven't written the cleanup function. So the cleanup function is just something we return here. And we can return a function that will do a clear timeout. And the timeout ID. Now the tricky thing that I learned is if you do clear, you see that there also is a clear interval. So you'd think, oh, maybe if I do set interval, I need to do clear interval. Well, I looked it up, and essentially they're all the same, basically. So you could do clear interval on a timeout and vice versa. So that's nice for our case. So now we can just say clear timeout, and it doesn't matter if it's the set timeout one or the set interval, just clear it. So now we have our cleanup function as well. And I don't think I had anything else to this. I'm just looking. No, that was it. So that's pretty simple. So that's how you set up a synced clock, as I'm calling it. And then we move on to the formatting piece, right? So that was the use locale time date. So let's make another hook for that. Use locale time date.ts. And again, let's boilerplate this up. Now, what do we expect? We expect the now time. So we'll call it now here as well. And it's a date. And we return the locale time date type that we'll declare here. Export default, and we'll export that. Cool. And now let's define this just to be specific here, because we already know what we expect, right? Because we wrote it down. Let's go back to where we wrote it, which was in the clock. So we already wrote, here's what we wanted. So let's just say there we go. Now, what do we want these to be? We want them to all be strings, I think. Yeah, because we're gonna throw these into the renderer. So these are just things we want to render as text, strings. So we have to make sure what we return are strings. There we go. And yeah, why is it complaining still? Function, oh yeah, because we haven't returned anything. So let's do that, return like so, and we'll copy these exact same things. This is just mocking this up, just so that we got something basic to work off of. This can be nice and easy to help sometimes. So there we go, so we have the basic idea there. So what do we have to do now? We have to take this now date and we have to convert it to those three things. So how are we gonna do that? We're gonna use that function I was telling you guys about. Let's go switch to it here and see. This piece here, if you guys remember, where is it here? This here. So that's the basic format for it, although this is even more specific here. That's the basic format we want. Oh, you guys can't see it on the screen. There it is right there. So let's copy that. And let's put that in date, doesn't matter, we're gonna do all of them. So the formatting we wanna do is on now. Excuse me, guys. Let's just copy this twice. Or no, wait, let's clear this piece first. So this is where the data is gonna go in for how we want the clock. This is gonna be the locale piece here. We'll just do that, mock that up. So let's copy, it'll be the same for time. Now for date time, it's not gonna be the same, and I'm just gonna go to my reference here as to why that's the case. So for date time, I wanna, like I told you, that's something that W3C requires for the time element. It requires a date time. So we can see here what the valid date time values are. Now, some of these are harder to format, but this one here is extremely easy to get. It's basically the ISO string, or maybe it's this one, sorry, one of the two. Let's just see right here, we can do it. I can show you here by just playing with it. New date time, new date dot get ISO, is it? Get time, what is it called? Some kind of ISO thing. Let's see what I used in my code, because I've already forgotten. It has the word ISO in it. To ISO string, okay. So to ISO string, there we go. So that, there we go. So you see that matches this format here. So let's just use this for that piece, but we'll use the now piece. So if we go back here to where we were writing it, so for this piece here, we'll just go now to ISO string. So there we go. So we got a valid date time. That piece is simple enough. But for these two here, we need to get the locale properly. And we need to properly set this theme, or what we want as how the clock will look, how the date will look. And we're gonna make those themable, and those are gonna be called formats, I think. We'll see. So let's get the locale. So we're gonna do const, and actually let's see how we're gonna get the locale. I think I have a link to it here. It's part of Next.js, yeah. So as I was telling you guys, we're using the Next.js routing now. So we can use internationalized routing. And if we search for locale here, how do we get it? So that's where we set it. But if we look here, there should be at some point a hook to access it. Let's just scroll down and see if if at some point we see a hook. Not seeing one, but there must be one. I think it was like use router. Yeah, here we go. Why did it? Oh, okay. Is it? It's not very clear from that how to get the locale. Well, it just so happens that I know, but it's not very obvious here. Like, the router has locale. I wonder if you go router.locale, no one uses it there. But I guess you'll just have to trust me that it's the router, guys. There's a way to look for it. Like if I type here locale, here we go. So router object, and then you could probably see somewhere that locale is used. I mean, it says here, this is where locale is, so that's enough for us. So let's try use router, and we'll put it in there at the top. And right here is where we're going to use it. So we're going to say use router. And this is a hook, basically, I believe. And we want to extract locale from there. There we go. Now, if we hover over that, we see that it can be a string or it can be undefined. So we got to be careful there. And I think we should set a default. And a little sneak peek that I can tell you guys about, and the thing where one of the test breaks, is use router does not work in jest. but it doesn't give an error so much as it returns undefined. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, if useRouter doesn't work, just return an empty object. And then within the empty object, we can still do this destructing, and we can say locale will have a default of whatever we put here. And now a little tricky way that I'm going to get the default when we don't have useRouter is we're going to pull it straight out of the config. Because if we look in the config, it's in there. Under the next.config, we got I18N default locale. So we can pull that straight out actually. So if we go import config from next.config, I think. It's called next config, isn't it? Yeah. So now we got config, and then we'll just go config dot default. It doesn't seem to know about that. Does that mean it's wrong? No, it's not auto telling me though. That's, oh, here we go. Now it is. I18N dot default locale. Cool. So we've kind of got a safe way here where useRouter will properly get the locale when it's set and when useRouter works. And when it doesn't, it'll get it from the config. And now locale is what we'll just pass in to these two pieces here. So now we got that aspect. So now what we have to do is set this piece. And if you remember in the browser here, under the format, no, here it is. That's where we can use this stuff where we can specify, I mean, they really have bad examples here, unfortunately, but we can specify things like this, like a date style or a time style. And I'm just going to show you guys what I ended up doing for the formats here. Yeah. So you see, this is the formats I ended up using, and these actually match the Windows ones. So let's do the time one, and I'll just show you how it looks. And you could reference that MDN article I showed you guys. So the time, for now, we'll just dump it here, is going to be that. So just like with Windows, the way that I like it, at least, and the way I set it up is I want the 12-hour clock. So I like AM, PM. I like to see the hour, the minute, and the second. So to do that, all you have to do is say hours numeric, 2-digit minute, 2-digit second, and hour 12 is true. And that'll give you the right format. And if the locale is different, perhaps this will change. I don't know. I don't care. I just like that it does that, you know? So that's that piece. And then I'll just copy the date piece into the code and show you guys here. The date piece, what I decided on, again, is similar to Windows, where I showed you where it was like February, or it was like Saturday, February 15th, 2021. So that's what we got here. So we got weekday, the long format, not Sat, but Saturday. Month, the long format, February, not Feb. Day is numeric, and year is numeric. And year will be the full year, not like 21 or something. I think there might be an abbreviated way to do it. So essentially, those are the formats that I want. So let's put those in the theme. So what we'll do here is we want to use the theme. Now, how do we use the theme? I don't know if we've done that yet. Is it like use theme? No. So let's just see. Do I have a link where I wrote down how to do that? Hopefully I do, but I don't. So let's just take a look at the browser here. Let's say styled components use theme and figure out what the hook is here. What's the hook? Oh, it's theme context? Is that what it is? Let's just see what I did in the code because I've already forgotten. It's not use theme, is it? Oh, it is use theme. Oh, okay, cool. Well, how come when let's find it here. Use theme. It's not even on this page? What page is it on? Oh, it's in theming, okay. Or where is it? I'm blindsided trying to figure out where this is. It's like it's not mentioned in styled components, but it's absolutely part of styled components. That's frustrating. How is that so hard to find? Implement use theme using hooks. It was like it was something they have in their PRs. Why is it not in their docs? It was done years ago. That's wonky. It's just hard to find, you know? I mean, sometimes you hunt around the docs and you find it. I don't know where I found that, but let's just say we know it now and try it out. So where was that? Not in the clock. Here it is. So we want to do use theme. So let's put it in here. And it's going to be some kind of destructing. Use theme. There we go. And let's see if we get autofill right away. That would be cool. What are the options here? Formats? No. Colors? Oh, okay, cool. So we do have it automatically. So, but we don't want colors. I think we want something like formats, I think, because this is very unique, this format. But there might be other things where I could do formats in reference to locales. So I will let this be controlled by the theme because maybe someone wants to change it, just like we'll do the icons one day, but this is easy to do. So this is more straightforward as far as I'm thinking right now, but it could be messed up. So that part's simple enough. So let's go into the themes and add this piece. So we got colors, we got sizes. So we want formats. And in formats, for now, we're just going to have a date format and a time format. And we decided it was, if we go back here, if we hover over this, we can see it's this. It's the Intel date time format options. So we'll just say that's what those two things are going to be. And let's copy this like so, and let's use it in the theme. So we need to make a format. There we go, simple enough. And these are going to be those settings we had. We'll close this. So let's just cut these out here. Was that the date? Yeah, that was the date. And now it's a semicolon. Now it's part of an object. And this is the time. Ooh, cut the time one out of there. There we go. That doesn't look too bad. And now we just have to bring formats into the object, which it's complaining right now that it's missing. Formats. There we go. It's happy with that. And now we have to pass the formats here. So we could destruct this more. We know what this is. So does this work? Oh, cool, it does. Do we want to do that? Yeah, let's... No, because it's a format. I feel like if we just extract it so much where it's time, then it's like the variable, it's like, what is this? This is... So let's just keep formats, and let's do formats.date. I prefer that. It's a little more descriptive. Formats.time. There we go. So essentially we have that piece as well. And oh, this isn't alphabetical. Let's alphabetize this. I'm not going to alphabetize it here because this looks cleaner to see these two because they're so similar. But I could. Let's not for the code. Let's not worry about that. So that is basically how I wanted that to work. So let's import that in the clock now. There we go. And save that. And what's left? Nothing. There we go. We got a clock. You guys see? And if I look at my system clock, it is very well synced. Oh, now I remember there's another piece that I want to do too. I remember now, guys. And this will be a tricky one. Let's see if there's a way that I can show you this being the way that it is. So if I go to the browser, hopefully this doesn't mess up the computer because I'm actually kind of really... Oh, okay, we got two problems. We see a problem here, but let's do the other problem I wanted to discuss first. So if we inspect here, you see it's actually working pretty decent. Okay, wait a minute. If I press save, here's the trick maybe. Watch me press save. Okay, wait, maybe I didn't change the code enough. Let me change the clock slightly and then press save. It doesn't consider that a change. I wanted to break it so I could show you guys what I did, but maybe it actually works like this. I'm interested to know. Let's try renaming this. So I save it again. I was hoping that the date time piece here would change in a way where you guys would be able to see that the milliseconds are kind of wonky. Let's do a console log to see if we're correct here. I'm going to jump into the code because I thought that there was a problem with this and I wanted to show you guys it. So here we go. So let's just make sure that the syncings are happening when we think they are. So we got a set timeout. That should only happen once, right? And then this callback here is the other one. Let's turn that into a function so we can also add a console log in here quickly. Same idea. And this one's the set interval. So if we refresh that and we go back to the browser and we look at the console, we clear this. So let's just refresh this page. So you see we're getting set timeout. Where's set interval, right? Set timeout is happening over and over again. Now you know why that is. If we go back to the code here and we look, you see how it's dependent on callback, right? So the use effect updates itself every time callback is changed. But why is callback changing when we're just setting the, if you remember, the callback is update clock. I renamed it update clocks for my test. It was update clock. But you see this function, it's like, okay, why is this changing every time? And the trick is because set now essentially changes every time slightly. It doesn't really, not in a relevant way, but it's enough where it's rebuilding this function every time. And this is where we get into React optimizations and things not working the way you think they are. So interestingly enough, set timeout's working because it runs callbacks so often, but it's not doing what I want it to do. And the way to do that is essentially we need to make, this is a callback, and a good way to do that in React is to like memoize this essentially with something called use callback. So we'll go use callback and we click it here. And did it import? No, let me undo that. I wanted to auto import it. So if you do use callback and you tab, then it auto imports it. There we go. See, it's right there. Yeah, and then let me just put this in there. So you put your callback in there and you say it has no dependencies because we don't ever want that to change. As long as that function works, I don't want it to change. I think there might be an argument to passing this in here, but let's see, because I think this is the exact problem we're trying to avoid. Let me hover over what use callback is just to see here. So use callback will return a memoized, I don't know, version of the callback that only changes if one of the inputs has changed. So that's the trick. So I've put the input as set now because that can change, but I think I don't want that because that's the behavior I don't want. So let's just save that and see if our console logs work correctly. So I press save and let's go back to the browser and let's refresh here and let's see. So you see that time it worked. We got one set timeout to do the syncing and now it's to set interval. So cool, that actually worked. And now if set now really did change in a relevant way, React would know and it would properly rebuild the function if needed be. But theoretically, I don't think that would ever happen, but it's part of the dependencies. So I think it's something they want you to put in. Yeah. I know with React, they love when you put all the dependencies in that are necessary, and that's totally fine. And that's what broke this, by the way. If this wasn't here, then it would have worked. Worked, in quotes. But in a way it wouldn't have, because it's not really the proper way to do React where you are properly setting your dependencies. Because if the callback did change, you would want the effect to update. It's just that it never should change, you know? But you catch it when you properly set your dependencies and you actually look for that kind of stuff. So I basically just caught an inefficiency there, I think. And I'm happy to have fixed that. And also I've had an opportunity to use the use callback one because maybe people didn't know about that one. So cool. So we made this function a little cooler, I think, and a little more efficient. Now we're going to remove these console logs. We don't need these anymore. This one's simple enough, can just be this now. There. So you see how we've split it into several different pieces, but we've kind of isolated the logic. So now this is just about the clock and the interval and the syncing. This piece is all about the formatting and where it gets its formatting and locale information from. The theme now is where it stores what you want the formats to be. And now the clock can just be very simple. You know, it's like get this stuff from the locale, update the clock, and make sure it's synced. So that's when I think the hooks are really working nice, when you get that cleanliness thing, and it looks decent. So with that, now let's refresh this page because there might be some timers running. I don't know if cleanup was working properly in the past. So yeah, so I can tell you guys that is perfectly synced with my clock. Without doing a screen share, I can tell you that my clock and this clock look perfectly synced. So that's a cool step in the right direction, right? Now our thing is looking more legit. And I think we're pretty much done with the clock. I'm trying to find any other things. Oh yes, that console log, right? That console log error. Let's just forget about that. Don't worry about that. Pretend you didn't see it. No, I'm joking. So if you look at this here, what it's saying, prop date time did not match the server. This is because of server-side rendering, essentially. And this is like a problem with using a clock in this way, and where you're updating an element constantly every second. So it's like the server-side rendered version has 1 second, but the version that got rendered on the client side has a different one. And next is like, something's wrong when I was unhydrating this code. It didn't match what I expected it to. And the truth is that that's okay. And it's pretty rare when that is okay. A lot of times it's because your code's wrong. But I'm going to say my code's not wrong in this case. And we're going to look at the scenario, what you do. So in the React documentation, it talks about this. Suppress hydration warning. If you use server-side React rendering, normally there is a warning when the server and the client render different content. However, in some rare cases, that's mine, it is very hard or impossible to guarantee an exact match. For example, timestamps are expected to differ on the server. There we go. That's the exact example I'm using essentially. So essentially you just set this suppress hydration warning on the element, which will do. So here's the clock right here. So let's just add a little piece here, like so. And now if you go to the code and we refresh the page, no more console error. So there we go. So that's fixed. So I think we're okay to ignore that error in this scenario because we know the use case and we are using it as a timestamp. So I'm going to consider that okay, and I'm going to go with that. So I think we've done the clock. I think we've completely done all the pieces of the clock that I cared to do. And we have a very valid clock. Let's run that test to confirm what I was saying about the React, the use router piece. Make sure the test still works. Cool, the test still works. That's nice. So it's not using the router, but it's using the default config, which is the fallback. So let's look at what we got here. So we got the clock, as you guys know, we've just went through that. We got the locale time, we got the syncing, we've updated the theme with formats, and we've updated the definition of the theme to fit that. So cool, so we upgraded the clock to a real boy. Now it actually is a clock. Before it was a clock that was only right once per day because it was a 12-hour clock. If it was a 24-hour clock, could it have been... Oh no, it's the 12-hour clocks that can be right twice a day, but not when they specify AM, PM. Then it's pretty clear. So it was only right once a day. So with that, I'm going to push these 20 commits that I have that I never pushed, I realize. And we'll see if the pipeline... I'll just quickly show you guys the pipeline too, the GitHub Actions, so you guys can know what that's all about. So GitHub Actions is where things go when you push them, when you do a commit. And you've got it set up that way. Why did it not push? Oh, it did push. Oh, it's still pushing. There were so many. It's probably done now. There we go. So wait a minute here. So in Actions, I was expecting to see something better than tests. That is not the name of what I expected it to say. What are all these other things then? Updated stream, less functions. These are like commit messages, but why is tests like that? That's weird. Let me open this and see. Maybe I pushed so many commits that it didn't have a single name to give it. I don't know. But this is the right test, so we'll see how this goes anyways. And just going back into the code, maybe let's try NPM Update one more time just for fun. See if that's fixed magically. You never know what's fixed and not fixed with this code nowadays. Does it now know that it needs to update things? It actually legitimately does look like it's running slightly different. It takes surprisingly long. Like my NPM update doesn't usually take this long. So that's my first little aha that something's messed up. So it ran, and did it update anything? No, but you know there's updates. Okay, we'll figure that out another day. That's weird though, that's weird. Not sure what's going on there. So we're at the 2-hour mark. I forgot to bring a water, unfortunately. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the file system. Maybe we could do the first hook of the file system. But it's so early days that I'm going to tweak it. So maybe, I put file system in the title. So let's discuss it. Let's start talking about it. And let's just see how far we get. We're only at 2 hours. So the test passed. Yay. That means something. So what we're going to use is something called Browser FS. It's what I used last time, and it's pretty cool. I think I've talked about it before. It basically just emulates the Node.js file system API. So if you guys know commands like fs.read or read directory, read synced or async commands, that kind of thing. Those are the kind of things you'll be able to do in the browser, so you can talk about it as if they are real files, which will be cool. And you see there's all these different ways to customize how your file system kind of works in the background. You can use like local storage, you can use HTTP requests, you can use, what's another good one? IndexedDB, which we're going to use. So let's just check it out. So one thing to note, if we go to the page, where is their page? This is their documentation here. I think they kind of mentioned how they're using like 1.4.3. That's what it is on NPM. Like if you were to install, if you go npm browser fs, you check it out here, you see they're using 1.4.3, but if you look at their versions, they do have a version 2. But if you look at version 2, even that came out 3 years ago. Whereas if you go to the repo, they did an update even a year ago. So, I mean, the test failed, but let's ignore that for now. And let's just decide in this case, rather than using NPM, we're going to use the repo. And there's a cool way to use repos, which is basically you can just copy the URL with like username/repo, and you can use that as the package. So let's start there. So we go into terminal and we go npm I, and this is going to stay, this is not a dev thing. This is going to be part of the build. So we just say that. And in theory, I think it knows to get this from Git and to use the master repo. So basically, we're going to have the latest version of this. And we're going to make a hook because this is going to be part of the context. So we're going to need a context hook like these two. Let's just copy one of these as an example. And let's rename it to use file system context state. That's a mouthful. Cool. And we'll go into this code we have here. And we'll do that, do that. And there we go. Essentially, I think we'll probably need use state as well. We'll keep that. This will change, and what returns will change. What returns is going to be the FS object that we're going to be able to use in different various places where we want to access the file system. So that's what we set here, FS. We're going to do set FS. And by default, it's going to be null because we need to set it on load of the page. And let's take a peek at the code that we used before that I've used in the past. So we'll go to my code here in another browser. I probably got it open 14 times now. So this is the old code. So the old context, the old file system. So you see there's not a lot of code here. And it's pretty similar to the example. You see how we got install and configure. And we're just importing everything like that. So we're going to do something similar to that. And if we look at the code that BrowserFS recommends, they have a similar thing here where they do install and config, just the same. But they're using this method here, whereas we want to use the import method with modules, which is possible. So let's just copy that piece. That piece was fine. Now it wants to remove this because it doesn't know what BrowserFS is, or because we're not using it. Probably both, but this is kind of, or is this wrong or right? Let's check the package file and make sure that is correct. Cool, so it worked. Yeah, it's called BrowserFS, but it is using the GitHub repo. So we can do that kind of import. And we want to use the use effect because we want it on load of the page, I believe. Let me just check the code that I used. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we need use effect. We want it to happen on render, not before. I think. I could be wrong on that even, honestly. That's a good point. It's something to think about, but maybe we don't need use effect. Let's try with it and then we'll do without after to see. So we need use effect and we're going to say it depends on, doesn't depend on anything actually. We just want it to happen once on load. I guess it depends on setFS because we're going to set FS within there. So we'll say setFS changes. Sure. It won't change, but just in case. So what was the code, if you guys remember, that they were using in their example? Because let's just copy that. Is there a better example? This one's, no, that's not better. Let's just copy this and see where that gets us. So we're going to put that right in the use effect here. So we need to attach to window, I think, and I'm pretty sure I attached to window in my other one. Yeah. That's why we want use effect, because we need to have the access to the window object, which only happens, I believe, after at this stage of the life cycle, essentially. So we'll do the install command, and then we'll do configure. And we're not going to have a callback even for now. We don't care about that. Oh, no, we are going to have a callback. Of course we are. Because E is the data. Yes, E. What is E? No, we don't. E is if there's an error. We actually don't need, we need a callback, but we don't need to worry about the return data. Basically, in this callback, once it's set up, we just need to set the file system. So we're not going to use local storage. Do I have a comment on that? Because I wanted to, yeah, here's the Stack Overflow thing. It kind of says why I don't want to use local storage. So how is local storage different from IndexedDB? And this guy kind of gets into it. But the gist of it, basically, that sounds interesting, is IndexedDB is asynchronous, whereas local storage is blocking. So if we did any kind of writes, it could end up making our page skippy or something, you know, which we wouldn't want. So or it would just freeze altogether. So we're going to go IndexedDB because that's the type of file system we want. And for the callback, we want to set the FS. And we just need to figure out how to set FS. Now, if we look at the code here, go back to the examples, how do we access FS? So there's this BFS require. I think it's related to that. And let's just see if there's one relevant to what we care about. not particularly, bfs require. So in this case, require buffer. But what I want to require is the fs command. Now, and this is kind of weird where they have .buffer, but I don't think you need that. If we look at, let me switch back to my thing one more time. If we look at the example I did use the browser bfs require, but then I just say fs. That's all we need. So let's just do that because that's pretty straightforward. So that's pretty clean. What's it complaining about? Fs module provides no match. So this is the part where we get to the type. So fs module, nice. It knows it's an fs module. So now we can specify that use state can be fs module or null, actually. And now what is fs module? Can we import that? It's not wanting to let me to auto import this time, unfortunately. But I can just show you guys because it does exist. So it's here. I don't know why it's not auto importing, but before it was. So it's basically, yeah, browser fs, and you can find it here, dist node core fs. Typically auto import would work, but it's being stubborn, so whatever. So now we have it. We have fs module here. We're setting it here. Let's just save so Prettier fixes things. So we can close this too. So Prettier's kind of tweaked things a bit. Oh, this is the file context, like that now. There we go. So use file system context is a type file system context, which, as we know, is just returning the fs object currently, as you see here, which is, it can be an fs module or null. There we go. Why is it complaining about that? Oh, okay, sure. And one here. There we go. So that's the basics of all you really need for it to work. You install it to window, you configure it to use a type of file system, and then once it's set up, you update the fs object with their function for it. And then in other places, when we access that file system context, we can use fs like how Node uses it. So we can do fs.write, fs.read, and then we can start to make all these like fake directories and stuff, because you can do things like you can switch this here to be like mountable file system, and then in options, you can set like writable, I think. You can basically set what's writable, where write happens, where read happens, where an asynchronous operation happens, and how a synchronous one happens. So we can set up a lot. Like we could even say when you first write, it goes to memory asynchronously, and then synchronously it writes to IndexedDB, which also happens to be an asynchronous command because of how IndexedDB works. So it's like some kind of double asynchronous action where it writes to memory first, which could be faster. I don't know. We can experiment with that stuff in the future. But for now, I just want to keep it really simple and just use this IndexedDB. And that's the basics of the file system context state, I think. So with that, I think that would be enough, honestly. Like, let's see what my code was. This is my old code, and it's pretty much the exact same thing, other than the context boilerplate stuff that we're not going to worry about this time, because now we have that separation. So let's make the context now that we have the hook for it. So we go into context, and let's just copy the process one, and we'll call this one file system. And it's going to be very similar in almost all ways, but in the word process, oops, we're going to replace the word process with file system. Let's see how that works. Okay, I mean, that worked for this one here. That was correct. This, no, I have to make that. And it's called file system, like that. Let's go make that one now. So in the types context, we also need a file system.ts, and we already have the type defined right here. So we can cut it out of there and put it in its place here as an export. There we go. And now we can bring fs module just in there, I think. Yeah, now we don't even need it here, I think. Oh, we still need it here for this piece, or can we just get rid of this now? No. So we need fs module in both places in this case. We need it here, and we need it in the type file here. There we go. So it's happy with that. And that means this is correct in theory. File system context state. Why is it saying that's wrong still? Types contexts file system. Types context file system. We got export type. Okay, so it's wrong. Let's save this, close it, open it. There we go, complaint goes away, magic. So we'll import this as well over here. We'll need it here. Presumably right there. Nope, not right there. here then. I'll let it fix it here. Auto fix. There we go. So there we go. So our hook's a little shorter now. It all fits on one line now because we moved the type out of there. So now you can see all in one little page there. This is exactly what you need for the file system. And I think at some point when we kind of extract this out into that writable, readable thing, we're going to have a util function that'll be like, I don't know, create file system or file system type maybe, or I don't know. But we'll make a function so that this will be even smaller, and then we'll extract out that logic of like, how is it writable and readable, that kind of thing. Because I think that makes sense to extract, but we'll see. So what's missing here? The initial state. We need the initial file system context state, and we can just put that in the utils here. Initial context states, and right here is it? Yeah, alphabetically, is that correct? No. Should be at the top. Oops. And it's that type that we need here. There we go. And we just need to say fs and it's empty, right? Or we already said it could be null, didn't we? Yeah. I guess in this case it's null by default then, because that's okay. And something's wrong with the sorting order here. Okay. Processes are not null by default. It could be an empty object. That's okay. Just means there's no processes. But as the fs is null because there's no fs at all. So that's all we needed to make a file system context. Pretty cool. I guess we can test it. I'm just trying to think where and why. We don't really have a good use to test it yet. But what will it be called? Could we test it in the index page? Let's see if we can. Pages, index. So we got the process provider here. The same exact logic. With this here, provider. If we do provider, then we have to do consumer somewhere else. You know, let's not even use it this episode, this stream. But, because I'm going to do some work on it. I'm going to tidy this piece up and make it, I'm going to think about it more. Because I'd like the readable aspect to come from a JSON file and be referencing the public folder. Whereas the writable aspect is going to be IndexedDB. And I might try this asynchronous in-memory and then synchronous IndexedDB idea. Because BrowserFS allows that kind of stuff. So let's just see if it works, you know. But this is the basic idea, and I think this is all we need. It hasn't crashed or given me an error, so I think that means that it's, oh, it actually has given me an error. Was this old? Oh, that's old. That's the old date time error, because I hadn't refreshed that page. So yeah, that's the file system, honestly. There wasn't many other aspects to it that I had. So let's look at what we changed here. So we installed the BrowserFS from the Git repo, so we get the newest possible version. We made the context. We made the hook, which was the most important part because that's where we build it and initialize it. And we don't have a destroy function here, which is interesting. Maybe we should. Can we? Let's see. Is there destroy or close or end? Let's search their words here for destroy and see if it's anywhere in the repository. Destroy node. That exists. FS has removed node. Doesn't seem like there's any way to do that. So that's tricky, because if we don't destroy that, how do we know, right? Maybe we need to add a little check here. Well, let's not think about it for now, but you see the issue I'm saying is that if we do a save, it's going to redo these two things. Maybe we can just check. We can do a console log. Well, I don't have it running yet. Let's add the code and then when we do the implementation, because I'm just thinking if this is a problem or if I'm trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist yet. But if we checked for like window has, or what do they call it? In, or it's like browser FS is in window. Is that the terminology? I think so. So if browser FS, how do you say not in window? Like that? No. I could do this wonkiness, I guess. Let's just do that as a pretend thing for now. So this would be the idea basically as a protection, because it's going to run more than once. So only run once basically. Maybe we can test this by having a provider. We don't need the consumer to at least test this theory. So let's try this. Console log.hello. And let's comment out these pieces first and just see if it runs. Oh, how's Prettier gonna mangle this? Let's try a save. Oh, okay, that's not bad. So we got our hello. Let's do a test with it. Let's add it here then as a provider, even though we're not using it. So it's the file system provider. I mean, we do need the provider anyway, so maybe we can do this step regardless. Is this the place for it though? Where does the file system need to be? Well, the only things that need the file system, the session needs the file system, we remember, because the session will be saving to the OS. So is this the right place for it? Where is the session provider? Yeah, I guess the session provider. Where is that? That's in the app. So is that higher level than the index? I think it is. So this is where the file system provider needs to be too, so that the session provider can also access it. I think that makes sense. So not here. Here is too late. Here in index is essentially this area, which, yeah, that wouldn't work. We need to go up a little more. So not here. So let's cut it out of there, and we want to put it in the app, right in the app. And that's all I changed. I didn't change anything else there, I think. Yeah. So now in the app, above the session provider, that's where we want the file system provider. There we go. So it's quite the little nested adventure there. So cool. So if we save that, and now if we inspect, I'm going to inspect this. Oh, I just saw a message here. I'm sorry I didn't see this earlier, Salvador Dali. This is really cool. Great job. Oh, much appreciated. Thank you very much. I'm happy you're liking it. I missed when you said the message, so I'm not sure which part, but I'll appreciate the general feel for it. And yeah, that's nice to hear. So why did I press inspect? Because I wanted to check the console. Okay, so there's my hello. So if I change the code, is it going to run hello again? Because, oh, sorry, you guys don't see hello. How can I show you guys? Let's switch to the browser for a second here. It's harder to show you in the app. So there we go. There's our hello. So I'm going to change the code in the background here secretly. I'm going to change it to hellos, and I press save. So you see hellos ran. Interesting, interesting. So that means if that console log ran, that means install ran again, configure ran again. Now there was no error, so maybe browser.fs checks for this kind of thing. But I'd also like if we could, because we don't need to run this twice. It's just a waste. So let's add another console, hellos with 2 S's for fun. And also I want to see what this browser thing is. Okay, interesting. So that false that you see there was me passing the browser fs as in window. Let's go to the console log and type window.browserfs. So does that not even work? I mean, that works in theory. There was no error. It just didn't work the way I expected. So I don't really know how to check if browserfs is already installed. It'd be cool to know if it's already installed. I guess it checks for us, you know? I mean, that's good enough. It would have been nice to have a check or a destroy, but let's just save that for another episode if I can figure out. Let's add that to the stream notes then, okay? So in the stream notes here, can we destroy the BFS object on refresh? Because usually we want our use effects to be able to clean themselves up. And this one's not doing that. It's reinstalling every time. And I'm not a fan of that, so we'll think of a solution to that. Oh, you know why that might not have worked? It might have been in the wrong scope. No, Windows out of that scope. Who knows? We'll mess around with this in another date, you know? Not a big deal. So anyways, we have our file system, and it essentially partially works. We've even installed it as the provider here. We aren't consuming it yet. Let's consume it. Let's just test this, right? So now it's at such a high level, we can pretty much consume it anywhere. So let's consume it right here. Yeah, let's just do it right here. So file system consumer auto imports, and we can do that to access it. fs, like so, and there's our function. So let's just see console log fs, and let's see what we get. That looks right. So if I press save here and we go to the browser, sorry guys, it froze again on me. My OBS twice. I gotta solve this problem. Let's add that to my notes. I don't know if I added that to my notes. Oh yeah, I did. Why did OBS freeze thrice now? Thrice. Ugh. Sorry, guys. Oh, let me switch to the... I don't even have my code set up now because it disappeared on me. There we go. So you didn't miss much. I caught it quick this time, but darn, these freezes, they're so disappointing. So frustrating. I'll figure them out. Luckily, they don't happen when I pre-record stuff. So if we switch back to the browser, I was just in the middle of showing you guys, where's the browser here? There we go, that console log fs worked. So there was fs, so it's working. So if we go back to the code, what happened there is I was able to test the consumer here. You see, I made a little file system consumer that used fs properly, which is cool. So we don't need it right now, but in the future, we're gonna use that. In the near future, I'm gonna make a component called the file manager, like File Explorer basically, and it's going to need FS to do its lists and its all of its stuff. Pretty much everything it does, it needs FS for. So now we have a file consumer that's using browser FS. It's part of the file system provider there. It's in the right place because session in the near future is going to need to work on the file system as well. So yeah, so we got all that done. And so yeah, the file system, I don't have a consumer yet, but that's the basics for the provider. And we'll discuss later about other stuff like doing the cleanup and all that stuff. Let's quickly mention here what I've got for the next stream. I mean, the next stream, I don't have any cool things to look forward to. It's mostly just WTFs from this stream. Let's put some look forward to stuff too. So we got something to look forward to. What do I want to do next time? I want to work on the file manager maybe. The file manager is also going to be the desktop icons. I think I told you guys that. Let's hope for that. Let's say the file manager and also the taskbar entries I want to get to. Because right now we just have this pretend one process, and I want to get some real ones in there. Although maybe it'll be a good opportunity to bring Hello World back. Do we still have Hello World? Yeah, we have the Hello World app. So maybe the Hello World app will load, and then that will be the first taskbar entry. And it's not going to animate in for now. I mean, I don't think they animate in Windows. I added animation in my V1 where they kind of slide in, but let's not do animation for now because there actually isn't animation on the Windows one, and we'll do it when it makes sense to do it, you know? I got too into animating stuff. We are going to animate the desktop icons though, because that's cool. And that's just my own little flair that I want to add. Yeah, so I think those are the two main things for components to look forward to. And I'm going to deal with all these WTFs and give you guys explanations as to why those things didn't work on the next episode. So let's go back to the webcam then. So that's my stream for today. 2 hours and 22 minutes it's telling me, but I'm sure is less than that when you count all the freezing that unfortunately happened. I'll work on that for next time, guys. I'm sorry it happened again. It sucks. I'm going to look at the crash logs and see if I can figure anything out. But I think altogether it was a pretty successful stream. We really cleaned the taskbar up. We got a file system essentially now. We got a working clock. The start button looks more Windowsy now. So we made some good progress today, you know? And I'd say in another 3 or 4 streams, we might have something really, really cool where we have icons, you click them, something opens. I don't think we'll have the start menu yet because that's actually pretty tricky and we'll get to that later, but there's so much more to do, so it'll be fun. If you've liked this video, please give it a like. If you like my videos or you want to see more of them, please subscribe. It really helps. It helps me realize that, yeah, people like this. People want more of this. So throw some comments in if you have any things you want to say, if you have any resolutions to these WTFs. I'm going to be committing the stream notes that are here to the repository, and there'll be a link in the description, as well as I'm going to timestamp the video so you guys will know at what points we were talking about what. That's about it. So thank you guys for hanging on and through the crashes and the freezes and stuff. On the final version that YouTube uploads, it's just going to skip right to that, and you're just going to see from Frozen to Clueless Dustin going, what happened? But that's okay. So thanks for tuning in. See you guys next week. Goodbye.